What is going on, everybody? It is episode 336 of Pop Culture Crisis. My name is Brett, and I am here with my returning co-host. Would you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, Crisis Actors. It's Mary. I am back from convalescence from my illness. I'm finally well again, and I'm back. And today, we have a highly requested, highly sought-after guest on the show.
Introduce yourself, sir.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to contain the crisis actors. I was not ready for that.
I guess that means something different to someone who is like missing 411 type content. But here it's just, we're all the crisis actors.
Yeah, I love that. I gotta come up with a good name for my followers. I'm Aidan Mattis. I am the host of The Lore Lodge, which is a YouTube channel that I started by accident. So, I talk about missing people, I talk about folklore, history, religion, and recently Bigfoot a lot for some reason.
That's why we actually have a poll today.
Oh, good God.
Yes, I have a poll up today. I asked, what is more elusive? I said, what is more elusive, Bigfoot or an honest politician? So you can go in the live chat right now and vote who you think, what is a more elusive thing to find. Thoughts?
I mean, having been in both the political world and the Bigfoot world, I've seen a lot more evidence for Bigfoot than I have honest politicians. So
that makes perfect sense.
And I'm not even somebody who really believes in Bigfoot all that much. So it tells you all you need to know.
Which cryptids do you believe in?
I take a stance that I think a lot of these folklore creatures, cryptids, if you want to call them that, all of that, I think a lot of it comes from probably something in our deep past that was there, maybe other hominids, maybe something that survived longer than we thought along those lines, and that a lot of what we see as, monsters and things in folktales come from things that were real that maybe weren't exactly what we see them as today, but something, for example, like with technology today, there's stuff we know today that 500 years ago would be magic. I think it's a lot along the same lines in most cases.
Do you think that dragons existed?
I am so lost on dragons as a concept. That's one people have been asking me to dive into, and I've been meaning to. I think that the idea that they might be the result of people finding dinosaur bones and not really getting what they were is possible. But you also see dragons in a lot of mythology from really all over the world, and it changes is the most interesting thing for me, because Chinese dragons, these long, slender, they carry a pearl, things like that. They fly around the sky. And then if you look at the Welsh dragon on the flag, it's a very different kind of dragon. So it's hard to say with those. I think it's in the same vein. It was probably there was an animal that we would recognize today as a dragon, so to speak, that over time morphed throughout folklore and folk tales and things like that.
Okay.
We're gonna get more into it, because I want to talk to you for a little bit about all your work and everything. Before we get started, guys, could you hit the like button on this video? Could you subscribe to this channel if you have not done so already, especially if you're new? Also, if you're new, if you came to join us today because you watch Lore Lodge, you'll see right down there that is called the crisis meter. And every time someone super chats, the crisis meter goes up. And as it gets closer to $100, we get what is called a crisis party. So if you want to super chat, all of the donations go down there. Also remember, $20 and over, we will interrupt the conversation and we will read that super chat right on the air in the moment. And then the goal after that is to try and get back to your train of thought as quickly as possible, which we're getting better at doing as we go. So guys, just go ahead and follow this channel, like the video, leave a comment on it. We hope you enjoy the show today. I want to get more information, Aidan, about your background.
Sure. Yeah. Do you have specific questions, or you just want to go into it?
I want to ask how you got into what you do, because, like I said, I was talking earlier about how between shows like this and shows like what you do, they're kind of pocket spheres between social media and then YouTube and all of these entertainment platforms. It's very interesting to see how people come to be interested in what they tend to cover. And I don't know if it's really. See, he just got to see his first. He just saw the first crisis, first donation from the Money Guns. I was not ready. I want to know what your background is and if it informed how you got into what you got into.
Sure. I mean, off the bat, I'll say this. I'm 25 years old, so I was growing up in that time period when, Ghost Adventures and Taps and Ghost Hunters. Paranormal State was my favorite. I ended up going to Penn State. Paranormal State was Penn State students. So I was interested in all that stuff from a very young age. And then as I got into college, it transitioned more over into researching history and folklore and religion, things like that. And then coming out of college, right in 2020, I had a lot of time on my hands to...
Because, there it is again.
I'll get used to it eventually.
You will get used to it.
But yeah, so there was that interest, and I went to school. I got a degree in medieval studies, and then went on to Hast Thou Pity for the Gourd. I love that they're here.
He just read it. He got it right there. Mary, do you want to read it to reiterate?
Yeah, we got that from Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan.
I can explain that one if you guys want at some point. But yeah.
He said, what did he say, Mary?
Hast thou pity for the gourd?
Do you want to explain it?
What does this mean?
Yeah, so I do a show called The Weird Bible Podcast with Wendigoon, and that's The Weird Bible on YouTube if you want to follow it. And that's a monthly podcast. But we were covering the story of Jonah and the whale. And in Jonah 4:9, there's a moment where Jonah's sitting up on a hill looking down at the city of Nineveh going, why is it not being smote? I was expecting to see fire and death and destruction. These people are horrible. After he just went and, they were basically like, you know what? You make good points. We'll be better. And God gives him an ivy or a plant. It doesn't say specifically what. It depends on which translation you're using. But an ivy, a plant, something along those lines. And then he has it wilt because Jonah's sitting there for too long expecting something to happen. And Jonah gets really upset that he doesn't have any shade anymore. And God very matter-of-factly goes, doest thou well to feel pity for the gourd? And Jonah's like, yes, actually. In fact, I think I'll kill myself. Which is just... We were sitting there reading it, and we started going through all the different translations, and it's like, is it right to be angry for the plant? Just these little things that, for the Bible, are really weird sentences.
Does the Bible inform a lot of your work?
Yes, definitely. I'm a huge fan of Michael Heiser and sort of this idea that the Bible...
I know why Wesley wanted to talk to you now, because he loves Michael Heiser.
Yeah, Heiser's great. Unfortunately, he just passed away a few weeks ago. So rest in peace to him. He had pancreatic cancer. But Heiser has been huge for me because there's a significant amount of the Bible that when you look into it is not the simple Sunday school, believe in Jesus, you go to heaven, don't believe in Jesus, you go to hell, do good things, or if you do bad things, the devil. Like, there's a lot of stuff about, spiritual warfare and the time before the flood and what angels do, what demons do, the heavenly host, the stuff about how God divides the nations among the princes before any of this stuff happens. So there's a lot of stuff in there that is far more complex and far more interesting than a lot of people give the Bible credit for. And when you look at that stuff and how, then you start looking at Phoenicians and their religion and the Mesopotamians and the Norse pantheon and the Greek and all that, you start to see a lot of parallels that it seems like basically everyone in that area of the world has similar stories to an extent. And I think that's fascinating. As somebody who loves folklore and history and all of that, I love it. So
then I actually have a question. How accurate do you think history is as opposed to what's been reported?
Oh, boy. I think I will say
also,
this.
at this point, does it matter?
Yes. I'm putting on this. I'm not asking for a percentage amount or anything like that, but maybe, a percentage amount. If you had to guess.
It's so hard to say. Because history, in many ways, history is actually like science in that we are always learning more. We are always discovering new things, new topics, and you start to uncover things that might turn the clock back. For example, one guy who's been getting a lot of flack recently, I just did a show with Mini Minuteman about this, is Graham Hancock, who's the guy behind Ancient Apocalypse, Fingerprints of the Gods. He's been on Joe Rogan like 8 times. I think he's got some very interesting points. At the same time, a lot of archaeologists are not really on board with it. And the reason is that there's a little tiny bit, there's a few shreds of evidence that we might have been a bit more advanced before the end of the Ice Age than we thought, and that climate change destroyed that.
Oh,
because
no,
there was
not climate change.
There was an aggressive amount of climate change at the very beginning of what's called Meltwater Pulse 1b. Now, it's not like massive tidal waves. Like sometimes Graham has said some things that imply that.
You'll get used to it, I promise.
But it is a pretty quick sea level rise, like several feet in a few years, and then it starts to become more consistent over a longer period of time. Like a percentage of an inch every year. So when you look at that, all right, well, there's something to chase down. That's the beginning of the thread, and you want to chase down where that goes. We see a lot of the same thing. For example, until I don't remember exactly when the Vinland site, Lanzo Meadows, was discovered, but prior to that, we thought Columbus was the first European to reach the Americas. And then we definitively proved, no, the Vikings got there 500 years earlier. So that's why it's hard to say how much of history is true and real. Yeah. I guarantee you 80% of historians are trying to tell you the truth. Okay. They're doing their best to tell you the truth. Okay. Then there's probably an extreme, and it's not even like 10% on the right, 10% on the left. It's really kind of a circle of people who are trying to make a point. Yeah, trying to manipulate history to make you feel a certain way, believe a certain thing, rather than give you the truth, which is what we try to do on our channel, on our shows, is what can we tell you that is as true as we can possibly get, as close as we can get, and then what questions do we still have left over?
Okay, since you mentioned Heiser, I just want to ask, thoughts on the Nephilim? I don't know.
I am...
Go off.
Yeah. I personally am of the opinion that passage, Genesis, basically Genesis 6, 1 through 5, I think, are about a mixed race of angels and human beings. There are a lot of people, including Heiser, who don't quite take that exact line. Heiser is also very much against Zechariah Sitchin's beliefs that this was the Anunnaki and the planet Nibiru and all that. For me, I think that what it's describing, the only other time in the Old Testament that the term sons of God is used, and I don't have my Bible in front of me, but basically what it says is that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they made wives of them that all that they chose. Well, the only other time in the Old Testament that sons of God is used is to talk about angels. In that exact
translation.
That exact translation, yeah. So you do get another time. So, for example, Nephilim, the term Nephilim, gets translated as giants. But then Goliath is also called a giant. The Rephaim are also called giants, but if you look back what the Hebrew words are, they're all different words. So why did the writers of the Septuagint decide to translate Nephilim as gigantes? Well, they contextually were a hell of a lot closer to it than we are. So if 70, this is the tradition, if 70 Hebrew scholars decided that what Nephilim means is giant, then we can infer that the Jews believed that there were giants before the flood. Now, does that necessarily mean that it's the half angel, half human? Not really. If you look at the book of Enoch, it does say that, and we don't know exactly when Enoch comes from, but the earliest date we believe it was written down was around 300 BC. And then, of course, the version we have today is an English translation of an Ethiopic translation of a Greek translation of Hebrew, so a lot gets lost along the way. This was probably oral tradition for several thousand years even. So, for me, I think that given Enoch's existence, I think the half angel, half human description of Nephilim makes the most sense. Now, I am not at all saying that there is scientific evidence these things existed. I'm just saying theologically, that is my opinion. But that's not everybody. But for me, I think that was real, and
you will get used to it. I promise.
Yeah, I know. I think that was a real thing.
Pointing directly at you and not us.
Yeah, we kind of have it lucky.
Yeah.
Sorry. But to be clear on one thing, Enoch is, in my opinion, not scripture. It's apocrypha. It is not scripture.
I do want to ask, I want to draw this back into pop culture because that's what this is. This is Pop Culture Crisis. Mm-hmm. What do you think, given all of your interests, all the things that you follow, all the things you that you report on, talk about, what would be your favorite examples of these types of stories in popular culture, whether it's movies or television?
Oh, and I wish that we had talked about the X-Files.
No, I have that.
Today.
I have that on my because I went on about a 20-minute rant the other day about how the rebooting the X-Files is an absolutely terrible idea, and it should be just stopped right now. But I want to ask you: are there any movies, television shows, anything like that seem to be above and beyond for you?
Specifically, the first 5 seasons of Supernatural.
Okay. Oh, people in the chat are going to love that.
The remaining 10 seasons of Supernatural were entirely unnecessary. I watched all of them.
I'm going to tell you right now. That's one of those shows for me. I've tried it 3 separate times. Every time I get 3 episodes in because it's right up my alley. Mm-hmm. I was like, they're on this trip across the country. They're stopping in all these small towns. It's very X-Files in the beginning. It's all small towns that are just basically Vancouver parading as small towns in America. It's right up my alley, but I just can't seem to stick it out.
Yeah, it's one of those shows that I think the reason I love it so much is that when I started watching it, I was 12 years old, and what we would do is on Friday nights, this was back when Netflix still mailed you DVDs. So for the kids in the room, 2011 or so, this was when Netflix still made DVDs. We would get the DVD each week. We would go to my friend Bryson's house, sit down, gather.
It's about the ritual.
Yeah, we would gather. We'd have our pizza, we'd have our popcorn, our sodas, and all that. And all these middle schoolers would sit, and we would watch a couple episodes of Supernatural, get ourselves thoroughly frightened of everything, and then go outside and play Manhunt in the dark for 3 hours. So for me, Supernatural early on was like a thing we did as friends, and then as we got older, got out into college and everything, it was just a show that we were still keeping up with because it was something to connect us back to our childhoods. So for me, it's nostalgic. The
X-Files did that for a lot of people as well. As the show went on, it kind of continued on. And as they got into college and things like that, they would still make it part of their Friday night routine. And it's funny because I've been rewatching. I started rewatching it again after this announcement came through that they're remaking the X-Files. And the Jersey Devil episode is right there in the first season. And I figured that would be up your alley if we're talking cryptids and things like that. Because that's essentially, that's supposed to be Sasquatch in that episode. Basically, it's a large man that they can't really. It's great, but it's like I was wondering.
That is the original version of Sasquatch, by the way.
That one
is the idea of like larger than normal human beings who live out in their own tribes in the woods and the mountains, separate from us. Yeah, that was the original Sasquatch to the natives.
I love those early seasons of the X-Files when they're in these small towns. Not the overarching conspiracy episodes. I love those in the beginning, but as I got older, I started to realize that it's the ones where they go to the small towns and all these things happen. That's where you get the stuff that's actually fun to watch. Also,
just a little vignette style.
Yeah, and also you said that National Treasure is
one of my favorite movies.
There you go. Would you know that they're remade that, or they've done the reboot?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Exactly. Ignore it.
What kind of blasphemy is this?
So we got a bunch of stuff to talk about today, guys. We're going to talk about Guy Pearce. We're going to talk about his comments. He made some very, very controversial comments that weren't controversial at all because they involved trans actors. So we will talk about that. Also, Mary, there is a $20 one right there.
From
Christine
Piombino.
Oh, good God. Hi, Mom.
Bennett?
Oh.
Thank you for hosting, Aidan.
There you go.
Nice.
Actually, Taylor's dad was in the chat the other day when she was when she was on and when you were gone. Like her dad was like in the live chat talking the whole time while Taylor was doing the show.
Oh, that's cute.
So we've got that. We're also going to talk about the fact that reality TV is essentially, I don't know if you'd call that the Antichrist, but it's bringing down America little by little. Every little day, a new show is announced that seems to be destroying this country. We're going to talk about Florence Pugh and the degrading circumstances from which she had to make Midsommar, and we're going to tie that in to Emilia Clarke and stuff to do with Game of Thrones. We're also going to talk about this hilarious story, and I do, as somebody who has a bunch of pictures over here of celebrities who are what I call tax heroes, such as Wesley Snipes, we're going to talk about these OnlyFans models, these twin OnlyFans models who are being screwed over by Justin Trudeau and the Canadian tax system.
We've got one from Korean George. Yep. Said Supernatural's angel death effect was so cool with the wings burnt into the ground. Also, I've been a longtime viewer of Weird Bible podcast, and shout out to Wenda C.
Thank you, Korean George.
Also remember that in Lucifer has Mark Pellegrino, who's a based libertarian.
Oh, I love Pellegrino.
He's fantastic. I would love to have him. There it is. Crisis Party already.
I gotta get me one of these.
Yes. You'll be able to see it from the. It's not as bad.
Okay.
That's pretty good. I toned it down after the other day. I toned out the beginning. I made the beginning sound even louder. It was like an explosion. My biggest joy here at this podcast is every week I change the Crisis Party sound effect. Mm-hmm. See that? I changed the Crisis Party sound effect so I can scare the crap out of everyone who has to come in here and be with it. It's one of those little joys in life that I have. So we're going to talk about all that, guys. If you are ready, Mary, we'll get right into it.
Okay. Wait, before we actually talk about anything seriously, I just needed to ask you one more question.
Sure, go for it.
Because my younger brother is just really into the Mothman and Point Pleasant and everything. And he's been there. He's been to the museum.
You have a video on it.
The merch and stuff. So I don't know what's your take on it? What do you know about it?
Sure. So, I mean, first of all, your brother, we have a video on it on the Lore Lodge. You should check it out. Goes through the whole story and all of the reports and everything. But yeah, for me, I'm willing to believe. I'm willing to believe. Now, exactly what are we talking about here? There was a derelict military ammunition storage facility nearby. So one theory is that the Mothman was either a like test flight suit of some sort that they were testing in Point Pleasant. Another one is, of course, that it was just an owl. But there's
a big owl, though.
It will be a big owl. It's described as being, 6 feet tall, a wingspan of 6 to 7 feet, flying, over people's cars and things. And then nobody sees it after the bridge collapses, which on the one hand could be that they had more important things to worry about than the Mothman. On the other hand, maybe it actually is some sort of angel of death, which is one of my favorite theories for it, because there are sightings of black birds and the Mothman and dragons and things like this all over the world right before bad things happen. The one about Chernobyl appears to be a hoax. There are no actual recorded sightings of a Mothman or a black bird or something like that around Chernobyl right before the disaster happened. But there are some credible reports of people seeing something flying around, like in Mexico City. There was one in Point Pleasant, of course. Part of the problem with part of the thing with Mothman is that everyone refers to Mothman specifically as the Mothman, and a lot of people don't look into the possibility of a broader topic.
It's not necessarily a moth.
Yeah, that it's not necessarily just the Mothman is Point Pleasant, and then everything else is something else. It could be that we're dealing with other things. I do like the flight suit idea personally. I think that one's pretty cool if you're looking for a non-supernatural explanation, because when you think about the timing and what was going on in the world, the U.S. government, the U.S. military was doing all sorts of wacky stuff. So I think that the idea that the Mothman may have been...
They never stopped.
Yeah, exactly. I think the idea that the Mothman may have been some sort of experimental flight suit technology is a cool one. But also for me, I'm looking at it like I would not be shocked at all if you're... In fact, I would lean towards the fact that this is something that people are collectively seeing before tragedies. And, for reasons that we may not understand. But
be a
demon, angel, I think the fact that it appears before bad things happen as a warning would imply to me that it's not demonic, though.
Okay. Lots to think about there.
All right.
Now we are permitted to actually get into our topics.
You're good?
Yes.
All right, guys, we're going to get started. We got a bunch of little stories to cover. First, the biggest one being that Goop Justice, Gwyneth Paltrow, has won her lawsuit. I think they should make a documentary about this trial and call it Goop Justice. She wins $1 in her ski crash trial.
And probably 6 figures to make up for her legal fees.
Probably,
that was not mentioned in most of these articles.
Yeah, and she also
will be charging him for her legal fees.
See, even that seems like spiking the ball for somebody of her wealth class. Given the fact he's a doctor too, I suppose. But this trial has been hilarious. It really does feel like it's been some sort of fever dream comedy where like her lawyer is comically bad at talking. Like, how does a woman who's
it's the doctor's lawyer who is the problem.
It's both of them.
She's like starstruck at Gwyneth Paltrow and trying to like get lunch with her afterwards.
Her lawyer is comically bad at talking in any form of public speaking. His lawyer is obsessed with Gwyneth Paltrow.
It's a total Paltrow
It all
stan.
feels fake to me. Like none of this feels real. Like it feels like they could all be lizard people and we're just getting some type of weird show trial.
And this video at the end where she's walking out and says, "I wish you well," into his ear.
I'm sorry. It feels
sinister.
It feels sinister coming from her.
I was defending her the other day, but that felt personal.
I'm telling you. I feel like she could be some type of lizard person who's she takes the mask off when the day's over.
I don't know. The idea of a celebrity countersuing somebody when they themselves weren't actually injured, like, shouldn't it be enough to clear your name?
She's claiming that, well, she was the one who was crashed into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he like crashed directly into her back, but he says you were stopped, you shouldn't have been stopped. But if you're thinking about it, like if they were in cars, he'd still be to blame technically.
I am not the type of white person who grew up skiing. I've been snowboarding on a mountain exactly once, and I will say I fell down the mountain. I did not snowboard down it, so I could understand how somebody might just be like trying to get back up, or they stopped because there was something in the way and they needed to reroute. So I don't know. For me, I look at something like this and I'm like,
Same for me. I played hockey. I wasn't allowed to have too expensive. We didn't have enough money to do 2 things that were expensive in my family. Like my brother skied. I played hockey, and my dad's like, yeah, I work for the government. You can't afford to also ski.
This is Gwyneth Paltrow, movie star and retired optometrist at a luxury ski resort. My heart is not exactly bleeding for either one of them.
Exactly. Neither one of these people seem like they're really victims here. They were both doing an extreme sport where injuries are extremely common, and neither of them is lacking for money to pay for their expenses. Like,
it's an old lawyer, and they're on like a rich person mount, like, you know.
But I like that this was a spectacle for us.
Yes, well, that's what I'm saying. Like, we
deserved that.
It's a vibe after an entire summer of Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, which just divided the public. It's good to have one where it's like they're both kind of ridiculous. Also, did you see the clip where he like brings up Epstein for some reason for no reason whatsoever?
Wait, can you play the clip?
I can play that clip. I mean,
didn't see this clip.
It's really funny. Like, okay, guys, I'm gonna put it into dual shot here. We're gonna watch this clip. It's really funny. Okay. You'll be able to, Aidan, if you want to watch over here, it should play here if we can.
Yeah, I'm classifying it as an insult, but it's absolutely ignoring me, ignorance. And that's what it felt like. It's like, what is going on
Podcast.
Here? This is obviously an issue that someone needs to be accountable for. And if they're never accountable, what are they going to do? They're going to do it again. Now we have the molesting of young children on an island.
Your Honor,
Denial.
This is ridiculous testimony. He's talking about...
Whoa.
I love the objection, ridiculous testimony.
Deny.
I think her face is my favorite part. She's like,
it's ignorance.
They can't see it. But
wait, was she on the flight logs? Is that why he's saying
I have no
that?
idea if she's
Hold on.
chat. Somebody's gonna have to check. I'm not Googling Epstein flight logs on the work computer.
am.
That's for sure.
No.
And somebody can tell me if she was on the flight logs. It's just really
She
funny
must
that
have
I don't know
been.
what that has to do with anything to do with the ski accident on a mountain in Utah. But that might be my favorite part. It's just like, yeah, and I'm being persecuted. What does that have to do
Also,
with
as far as things that happen in the mountains of Utah, this is pretty tame. I know of a lot of people who went missing under extraordinarily terrible circumstances. But it's...
Worse things could happen.
Exactly. That's the other thing about this, though, is like... The Epstein comment, you know, is a little funny, but like in that it's just totally ridiculous. But I'm also thinking about it, like I started thinking about Gwyneth Paltrow, and I'm like, wait a second, isn't she the same like person who sells all those bogus pills?
Yes. Well,
like,
I mean,
the same ones that Alex Jones sells.
She literally, has sold from the same manufacturer.
But she's
as
like
Alex Jones.
she's like kind of transitioned more into like, you know, like rich person lifestyle brand. That's what Goop is. That's why Goop. She should have something called Goop Justice now.
Darn it. Gwen Stefani is on it, and Gwyneth is not.
Oh, close.
But I'm literally looking at the Epstein flight logs right now on the company Wi-Fi. Just
dude, that guy is probably like. He also said like he sent like an email to his daughter after this happened, where he's like, I'm famous, because he's like, ooh, I hit a celebrity.
It almost feels like just, you know, a guy was trying to get his name in the news because he was bored.
Yeah,
like
well, he's old, he's retired.
He's got nothing to do.
He's got nothing better to do. He's just hanging out.
And if you can get $3 million out of it.
Yeah, he initially tried to sue for $3 million. Good money if you can get.
Then it went down to 300,000.
Oh God.
Yeah, and
Then
she's just
he
like,
got
and she
nothing.
fought. Well, I mean, I imagine
Then he
that
lost probably 300,000 on this.
I imagine that for a lot of people like this, they just assume that a celebrity of that size might just settle out of court.
That's probably what happened.
Which is even funnier. Gwyneth Paltrow's like, I'm
going down
principle.
fighting. Like, she will fight for her truth.
She is the actual strong, independent woman.
But do you think that some celebrities are lizard people?
God, no.
No. Or politicians?
I don't think there's lizard people.
No.
You never know.
It was always meant as like a somewhat figurative, somewhat.
Yeah. Do I think that there
Literal
are
interpretation.
secret societies and that these people all are, you know, working to, or not all of them, but a lot of them are working towards the same agenda behind the scenes? Absolutely.
Do they have reptilian features and behaviors? Yes.
No. Behaviors, yes. Features, no.
That was
Sometimes features.
That was an old
Sometimes.
In the
features.
unlucky genetic lottery.
That was an old George Carlin bit where he talks about like you don't have to have a formal conspiracy. They go to the same board. They're in the same boardrooms. They go to the same colleges. They're all part of the same fraternities. It doesn't need to be formal for them to be able to move an agenda along for it to be successful. If anything, that gives them more cover because you have an innocuous reason for meeting people. If you're just going to your 20-year like class reunion with the rest of your snobby friends from your law school, I guess a lot of these actors actually do end up going to like 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 good colleges because they're all part of the same in group. I mean, we just had Kimberly Guilfoyle was on IRL the other night, and she used to be married to Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom's wife now is an actress named Jennifer Siebels Newsom, who was big before that. So it's like they're all part of the same clique. So when people say it's a big group and you're not in it, that's actually true, right?
Yeah, I will say this much for all the people who are sitting there going, "Yeah, it's the Freemasons." No. I wish we were that cool.
Wouldn't that be cool?
Are they cool?
We get pizza and talk in a basement.
Okay.
That's what we do.
I've heard rumors.
No, I'm a fourth degree Mark Master Mason. Like I love what we do, but it's not that. Like it's not that kind of thing where we grow. And everybody's like, "Oh, you don't really know until you get to 33rd." I know a lot of third degree Masons. They're dudes that have like, kids who went to school with me. Like they're not.
What happened to the Knights of Columbus?
They're still around. My grandfather was one.
Okay, so
I have one of his pins actually.
I see the.
But you can't be both.
You can't be both.
You can't be a Mason and Knights.
No.
Why not?
So the Knights of Columbus developed because of the Freemasons back in the 1800s because there were a lot of Catholic guys who wanted to be Freemasons because being a Freemason was cool back then. And then
it's not cool anymore.
It's just not really that much of a thing anymore.
I don't think people think it's cool anymore.
There's like 3 million of us.
I mean, to be totally honest, people think of like the like old dudes paddling each other and
if you want to think Freemasons and like actually get an actual idea of what we are, National Treasure does a great job.
You know that they did an episode of Castle that involved like somebody hid a fake treasure hunt to look for real gold, and it had to do with Masons and symbology all over buildings in New York because they were all designed by the same group. Yeah. So I
did like a really poorly written senior thesis in high school on like the sacred geometry or like masonry ritual practices in the founding of America and like the way that DC is architecturally planned.
Okay, I will say there's definitely a square and compass in DC. I will give you that.
But they were like, wasn't most of DC all designed by the same dude?
Yeah, and there's no hard evidence he was a Freemason.
Okay.
But also that doesn't really matter because the people paying him were.
There you go.
So that said, I mean, listen, there are definitely Freemasons who are bad people, who are, terrible people. But you've got to be careful and look at who you're talking about because there are Freemasons who were slave owners. There are Freemasons who were, mass murderers. There are Freemasons who were occultists and Satanists. But then if you look at like Aleister Crowley, he was never a Freemason. He made his entered apprentice degree and then he was laughed out of his lodge for the things he was saying because they went against Masonic values, which are primarily Judeo-Christian. So you guys like him, like Anton LaVey wasn't a Freemason, but everyone thinks he was. So what you're looking at is a club that basically is for, men that does charity work and is a place for you to get away from your wives a couple nights a month. And everyone thinks
that's why society's crumbling because there's not enough of those anymore. That's the problem.
What I tell people is look at the list of presidents who are Freemasons.
Yeah.
And you will see that they were not doing anything like, a couple of them were like FDR, who was just a terrible, terrible person. But you'll see that most of the presidents who were Freemasons really didn't try any weird globalist stuff. They weren't into any sort of like, a lot of them were actually against making the United States a more centralized power. And if you go back far enough, the whole organization dates its roots to the Knights Templar, and then even further back than that to a guy named Hiram Abiff, who was one of the builders of Solomon's Temple.
So the question is whoever Gwyneth Paltrow's married to a Freemason? That's what we need to find out.
No, it's just some surfer dude.
We need to find out.
Name,
that makes a lot of sense.
It's the people you least
some guy
expect.
who LARPs as a surfer dude, but is not.
That's even worse. Like that's even worse if you're like pretending to be
sort of like how she's crunchy, but
but she's rich. So
she's
she
also
really
rich and smokes cigarettes.
Look,
she said you have to find the balance between tofu and cigarettes.
It sounds like something that's made to be like an infographic. Like, it's made to be something so
Live,
that
laugh, love.
Some lady can put on her Pinterest. Like some lady wants to put that on her Pinterest right now. So look.
Also, for the person in here who thinks I'm Jewish, I'm not. I'm Irish and Welsh and German and Italian.
There you go.
Just saw that in the chat.
There you go.
Correcting the record.
All right, guys. I got a couple more updates here. Jonathan Majors, his agent has been talking to Marvel because they're discussing options going forward about what the hell they're going to do with this guy who just, did you see his tweets that got posted yesterday that don't really exonerate him? If anything, it just makes it look like
it makes him look like he's psychologically abusive.
That she has like battered wives syndrome.
No, it literally says like she took the blame for it and admitted that she instigated it by grabbing his phone.
Yeah, she's like,
which means that he still strangled her and caused like her to have bruises on her neck and fingers and everything, but she took the blame for it, which just means she's a battered wife.
I saw a bunch of I saw the internet kind of split. Half the people look what the text says. He's clearly innocent, and the other half are like, this isn't not the flex you think it is. To his lawyer. It will be interesting to see, given that I don't feel like the texts do much to completely exonerate him, if they do decide to release the video of this, because this took place in a cab where there would clearly be, because for safety reasons.
I see enough fight videos on my Twitter feed these days. I don't want more.
You gotta, there's probably a way to algorithmically change that. You're gonna have to look at nothing.
You can say not interested as many times as you want. It doesn't matter.
That works for, like on Instagram, that works. If you say not interested enough, it will eventually go away, but it takes some time. So hopefully we'll see. It's a big problem for Marvel. But all of this is a big problem for Marvel, which has billions of dollars riding on the next phase of Marvel movies in which he's supposed to play the big bad.
Yeah.
There's a $20 one right there.
Oh, from DD Megadoodoo97, he said, is it true that the Freemasons fire a symbolic cannon at the Vatican annually? Also, hi, Mary. Glad to have you back. Hello.
Is
that true?
I've never been involved in that. I've never heard of that.
He's like, I never got
Nobody has ever told me about that. Honestly, I think that would be kind of fun.
All I know is that Catholics are forbidden from being Masons.
Yeah, and when I joined, the master of our lodge was a Catholic man, so that's how that's going.
And they don't really listen to a lot of those rules. So.
But you want that invitation to the next time they do that. It just got lost in the mail.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I want to go to the Vatican cannon party. That sounds great.
It does sound fun, does it not?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's you want to talk about the things the Catholic Church did to non-Catholics during the Middle Ages. I think we can say the Freemasons are allowed to symbolically fire a cannon at them.
So would it be like a cannon where no projectile goes off? It's just,
I assume that's what they mean, is a symbolic cannon. Like, we do have like little cannons that we fire off for some reasons, but it's I've never heard of it being related to that. It's just a little fun stuff. And there's a lot of the times where we're like, we're talking about like the Revolutionary War or the Civil War or something like that. We're really big into history.
Do you think you're going to end up being a Civil War reenactor when you get older?
Probably not. I do know a guy who does that, and he looks like he really enjoys it, but I just don't think it's my thing to go stand out in a field in like wool in the middle of summer.
I've known 3 people that do it, and I've never met nobody in my life has ever been more dedicated to something they enjoy doing than the 3 people I know who do Civil War reenactment. They're so into it. It's kind of fascinating. Yeah.
But also, I do want to be clear, like, it is entirely possible that there is a group of Freemasons who goes and fires a cannon at the Vatican every year. I'm not saying
it's entirely possible. 500 Joe Rogans.
I know. Apparently, I do that a lot too. I'm not saying that never happens. I'm just saying I've never heard of it, and my lodge has never discussed it.
Cool.
All right.
And I am buddies with like the Grand Lodge people. So.
Okay.
All right. Also, guys, if you didn't see this, Tekashi 6ix9ine, the people that actually beat the crap out of him got arrested.
Why did the first 2 of them look so innocent?
The guy,
well-meaning.
Guy 1 and 2 definitely look like somebody they got picked up by accident. Like, especially the first guy. The first guy is just like, I didn't do it. Like, why am I here?
Yeah. The third guy, I might cross the street. The first 2 guys, they look harmless.
Middle guy has really good eyebrows, actually, and eyelashes.
Suspiciously good. Yeah.
Also, beards that I'm clearly jealous of.
Yeah, I wish. Yeah. I wish I could do that.
Very floofed up.
I mean, I can't. Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Tekashi 6ix9ine snitch on literally everyone?
Yeah. Yep.
He's lucky to be alive.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's just like, why? I was thinking about this the other day, and it was just kind of making me angry. Like, they released him knowing that he would be targeted, which would cause more crime. Why don't we just lock him up then? You know?
Well, I mean,
it's like you're encouraging.
Not really fair to him.
That's not really,
He takes the risk, especially if he's got the money to afford private security.
It's his decision.
He's made these life choices, but
yeah, I mean, he could have easily just left the country.
I'm thinking like El Salvador model.
Yeah. He could have just left the country and been fine. It's not like this would have mattered to anyone in Spain.
There were other options that he simply didn't take.
Yeah.
So, you know, nobody deserves to get beaten up in a gym for no real reason, but like, you know.
Yeah.
I just don't like all of the...
You reap what you sow.
Yeah, I don't like all of the people in like suburban neighborhoods tweeting safely in their bedroom. He deserved it.
Yeah.
This is how like that's how the streets work.
They're not
whatever.
about
like,
that life.
Yeah,
says some dude named Charles.
A girl who has a tapestry on her wall.
Yeah.
All right, I've got a couple of other very strange announcements before we get into everything. I thought this might be an April Fool's joke, but apparently it's not. They're going to bring Forrest Gump 2 into development. Again, why? I have no idea why. I don't think there's any reason to do that.
I don't think that they can make movies about disabled people anymore.
Probably not.
Time's probably over
Yeah.
for that.
Well, no, he's grandfathered in because the first one was made at a time when you could, so he's allowed.
You could never make Forrest Gump or What's Eating Gilbert Grape. Neither of those could fly today.
Or Sling Blade. All right, we got a couple of other. Oh, I want to do Cringe of the Day. Let's just do Cringe of the Day.
Oh boy, what's Cringe of the Day?
This is a video that somebody released yesterday.
I have thoughts on this.
I saw this.
Okay. All right, guys. If you haven't watched it, yes, it's a trigger warning for the state of relationships between men and women here in the West. Here we go.
Right now, because I just had a man approach me in a parking lot, and it went fine. And I'm going to tell you why it went fine and how to address it, because it was in a book I read, and this is how you're supposed to address it, but it scared me. I'm literally shaking.
I haven't heard that since the 2016 election.
shaking.
I am
Literally shaking.
alone with my son, by myself, a woman, and a male approached me in a parking lot. He's, "Excuse me, miss," and I don't know why in the hell he was approaching me or what he was trying to do. And before he was probably 30 feet from me when he said, "Excuse me, ma'am."
That's a lot.
And I turned around and I literally yelled at him and I said, "Do not approach me." And he immediately started going in the other direction, and I just kept saying it over and over and over. I said, "Do not approach me. Do not approach me." And he, of course, got what the F did it? He started cussing and yelling, what's your problem? And I looked at him, and he actually then crossed a couple cars down from my car. He didn't come anywhere near me. He crossed a couple cars down from my car and was like, continuing to cuss and say, "What's your problem?" And I said, "You do not approach women in a parking lot." I just kept saying, "Do not approach me. You do not approach women in a parking lot," yelling it. No male should ever approach a woman in a parking lot. Ever. No male should ever approach a woman in a parking lot. And if a male does approach you, you need to turn around and use the strongest voice that you can possibly use with them. Don't be polite. They need to literally screw off. No male should be approaching you in a parking lot.
Only a Sith deals in absolutes.
Yeah, we're kind of assuming it's not fake and it's not just for TikTok.
It's not. She keeps going. There are 5 more of these
For
videos.
explaining.
Yeah, her whole tip.
And the story keeps changing. Now, then he's sketchy looking. Then he looks homeless. Then he's really aggressive. And of course, for me, I comment.
This is racially coded.
Yeah, me with my 1.2 million followers on TikTok, I sit there and I comment. I'm like, "Oh, so you only scream when it's some poor, downtrodden homeless man approaching you? Got it? You're cool."
What a lady, right? We're kind of assuming, especially because she has a son who's going to grow up to hate himself.
I don't think so.
Oh, she's not going. You think she's going to raise that guy?
Poor kid.
I mean, we know it's not about him being a man. It's just about him being homeless.
No, it's about him being a man.
I mean, why was he? It doesn't really matter. You just are supposed to ignore it and just get in the car.
Well, and the thing is, she says he's 30 feet away. And here's the thing: there have been several times in my life where somebody has dropped something, or I've been in a parking lot and somebody was loading their groceries into the car and the cart starts rolling away or towards a car or something like that, and I've been like, "Hey, just so you know, that's
Clef the Misfit.
Try and do the right thing."
$20.
Clef the Misfit said there actually is a sequel to Forrest Gump and the novels the movie is based on. It's called Gump and Co.
Oh my
Released
God.
in 1995. There's been a plan to make the film of it for years.
Well, they're getting it off the ground now, apparently. So
Okay.
Good for them. I have no interest in it.
I mean,
personally.
let's be honest here. This chick didn't drop her wallet. The guy was probably about to ask for money. And it's harmless, fine.
Yeah.
Woo! Crisis party.
Oh my
And
God.
depending on what area she lives in, probably shouldn't engage, just get in the car.
For me, what bugged me a little bit more was less the fact that she was freaked out, and more A, the fact that the story keeps changing, and B, the fact that it's there's a It really does feel like the way she's describing it is like some homeless guy was approaching her, and there's a way to deal with that. There's a way to handle that.
Homeless people, ick. That's what
and I understand that women do experience the world differently because of different size, stature, like and that it can be frightening. But she also I think what really bugged me was that in the first story she's in a mall parking lot and she says it's empty and this guy approaches her, but then later on she says that he goes like 4 or 5 cars down. And then in another version of the story, there's a whole bunch more cars, and he actually is asking other people. So her whole reasoning that she was alone in a parking lot and that's why she screamed at him kind of falls apart. That bugged me a little bit. It seems, because what I think about here is I'm like, as a man, say that she did, something dropped off her cart or she dropped a wallet or something like that. I don't know what the situation was here, and because her story keeps changing, I don't think she's a reliable narrator. No. So for me, I'm sitting here, I'm like, if I were in a parking lot and there were people around, and a woman dropped her wallet. I saw it, I picked it up, and I said, "Hey, ma'am," and went to hand her back her wallet, and she turned around and screamed, "Do not approach me." Everyone in that parking lot is suddenly looking at me like I'm a monster. Yeah. And that would,
well, this is like, I saw this reaction that said, like, true crime podcasts are turning housewives into paranoid schizophrenics. And... Thoughts? There's definitely a grain of truth to that. It will change your view of the world and how dangerous it is.
You do become the media you consume a lot of the time. Like my mood can actually change depending on like what I'm watching. If I'm watching something with a cynical bend to it, I'll find it affecting how I'm approaching the world until I stop watching it for a period of time. They might not even know that it's affecting how they see things. And also they're taking curated stories that are done by these podcasts and these shows that do it for work, that take the outskirt examples of horrible things humans have done to one another.
And then they do their makeup and talk about it.
Yeah, it is what it is. So.
And then there were a bunch of reactions like, what, men just can't approach women anymore? And it's like, I guess
there was a rational conversation to be had.
Not if she has a baby with her.
That's true. Like, I will. Yeah, if the baby was like,
and it's like you're visible, at a grocery store or something. I don't know. It's just
I'm
like a weird setting.
If there was no good reason for this guy to actually be approaching her, I think she, starting to scream at him like that when he's that far away is, maybe a little bit jumping the gun on it. But I can also understand the suspicion.
I wonder if she carries a gun. Or she's opposed to that.
She should.
She should. She should be.
If you're going to be if you're a woman out alone and you think that there's a chance that you're going to be attacked, you should be armed.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, let's go ahead and get into it then. Let's move on. Let's talk about Guy Pearce, ladies and gentlemen. Guy Pearce from Memento. He got into very big trouble the other day because he apparently doesn't know anything about the internet or the way culture is going these days. He had the temerity to ask the question, if only trans people can play trans characters, then can trans people only play trans characters? And then he found out swiftly, you are not allowed to ask questions, my friend. You just do what they say and you move on, because you are going to get into very deep trouble on the internet for daring to ask such a brave and stunning question to the public.
Stunning and brave question.
Stunning and brave. Thoughts?
If the only people allowed to play trans characters are trans folk, then are we also suggesting the only people trans folk can play are trans characters? Surely that will limit your career as an actor. Isn't the point of an actor to be able to play anyone outside your own world?
Duh.
I mean, the follow-up question is, have you played a woman, Guy Pearce?
They do in the theater all the time.
Yeah.
In theater,
they used to, but that's not the way Hollywood works anymore.
In Hollywood, absolutely not.
It is hilarious how they pick and choose what you're allowed to change and what you're not allowed to change, meaning that you can play, you can race swap a character, you can gender swap a character, but you yourself cannot do that. The Ellen Page can now play, who is now Elliot Page, can play men or women now, depending on what day of the week it is.
Well, they changed
Scarlett
Elliot
Johansson
Page's
can't.
Character into a trans character, which deviated from...
In what? In The Last of Us?
From Umbrella Academy.
Gotcha.
It was Gerard Way's comic book series. And they changed the character that Elliot Page was playing after
transition?
The transition. And that was just like what they were expected to do.
My favorite part of this whole story is there has never been a group in history more protected or able to cause more fear. You have to see the length of the message that he wrote. It's like a full page that he wrote in his apology for it.
Yeah. Restitution paper.
Like that is he made that tweet what Mary read to you basically, and this was the response he had to give you.
Like I'm not reading all that, but congratulations or sorry that happened.
Yeah, like you're not allowed to ask questions. You're not allowed to push back in any way, shape, or form. They will cry out in pain as they punch you in the face. You're not allowed to deviate from the narrative at all, and the narrative is that they can play whatever role they want, but they also are the only ones who can play their roles that involve their gender identity, because to them, an actor can only play something within their lived experience, which makes no sense because the whole point of an actor, between research, practice in the craft, is that you're supposed to be able to convincingly convey something outside of your lived experience.
You might not be able to see it looking at me, but I actually was a theater kid growing up. I started acting classes and camps and all that when I was in 4th grade. I did it up through about 10th grade. And then I switched over to music because theater people were telling me I wasn't a real theater person because I was working at a local regional theater instead of doing the school one.
Gatekeepers.
Exactly, theater gatekeepers. And I think that was kind of the beauty and the joy of it for a lot of us was, you know, especially as kids, but even as adults, the whole point of acting is that you're going and you're putting on a performance. You are being somebody aside from yourself. Yeah. So, you know, when I remember it was People's Light and Theater in Malvern, Pennsylvania is where I did all of my stuff. And every year around the holidays, they do something called a panto. Okay. And in the panto, one of the main jokes was that there was a character that was the dame. This was like structural to the panto. Was a character that was the dame. It was always the same actor. It was a man dressed in women's clothes with like huge fake boobs, and like the whole thing
Luke would love it.
It was just making fun of, like, you know, this character was both making fun of women and making fun of the man. It was supposed to be comedic, and everybody loved it. Everybody laughed because the whole show was ridiculous. Yeah. The entire idea of a panto is that you go over the top. And I think with acting today, especially, we're starting to see this weird thing where, for like, you know, 5 years ago it was straight actors can't play gay characters. Yeah. Well, no, I think straight actors can play gay characters and gay actors can play straight characters, because if you're a straight man who can play a gay man, or you're a lesbian woman who can play a straight woman, and you can do it convincingly, that's impressive. Yep. You're just a good actor.
Matt Bomer is a good example of that too.
Neil Patrick Harris.
All good examples of gay men who were able to, and those are characters that weren't just straight men, but were considered heartthrobs to women who wooed women consistently in various roles they played. And it's weird because I think part of it is also because Hollywood for a long time, if you pay attention to the casting departments, they always, people think it's a new thing these days that they try to incorporate, like they'll give the character the same hometown backstory as the actor because they feel like it adds to authenticity, but they've actually been doing that for decades in Hollywood. They try to actually mold aspects of characters to be more in line with the actor themselves, and I don't think that actually helps in any way. I think it seems like more of an artist's version of a virtue signal that they're able to now exploit because of how heavily Hollywood has gotten engaged in identity politics.
I do think it was a perfectly fair question for him to ask.
Exactly. You know? It was so that's what's funny about it. It was so reasonable.
I will say, I think had he asked it a week earlier, it would have received significantly different responses.
True.
It probably would have been, you know, he might have still gotten some flack, but I think there would have been more of a discussion, probably would have been more reasoned and all that. Of course, Twitter, so probably not. But
I don't think on Twitter there's any chance of a reasonable discussion. True. I think this would be the reaction no matter when it was posted.
But I do think that the fact that he posted this, 3 days after
that definitely has something to do with
a trans person committed a mass shooting, like.
And you know, as we know, they're under attack.
Yeah, and well, I will also be very open about the fact that, like, the response I've seen from some conservatives about this shooting, how suddenly a lot of people who 2 weeks ago were, there should be no restrictions on what guns you should own, are like, trans people shouldn't have guns. No, screw that. Trans people should have guns. Yeah. Gay people should have guns. Black people should have guns. White people should have guns. We should all have guns.
I agree.
Guns are fantastic.
I said that.
You're mentally stable.
Yeah. Yeah,
even then though, because like I had anxiety and depression, I'm not gonna shoot myself.
That doesn't count. Like, I'm saying people who like scare the shit out of the people around them and constantly make.
I think if you're making threats, that's one thing.
That's literally like every one of these examples. I mean, that's and also recognizing, like, we're getting off topic, but like recognizing the the role that the FBI plays in these situations.
Oh, yeah. Well, I have no illusions about
no,
like,
that definitely
stuff.
had something to do with the reaction to his tweet, for sure. But he would have been eviscerated regardless. My main thing is, like, I'm just tired of. I just don't think we need this many stories told about gay and trans people. It's like, what, 1% or a like
depends what generation you're talking to.
Percent of all of our population, and they're being inserted into at least like a quarter of roles in Hollywood.
Actually,
now.
Hollywood identifies overwhelmingly 22% identify as LGBTQIA.
Yeah.
So based on their population, the population of LGBTQ stories being told, it's actually pretty similar to what the actual number of people in Hollywood who identify that way are.
My problem is when they start superimposing that onto the rest of the nation and think that Hollywood represents the rest of us.
Well, the other thing too is that it's not just like it's backfiring. Is the problem. You know, I have gay friends, I have trans friends, I love all of these people very much in my life. But what I'm seeing is the rush to make every single TV show and movie about a gay person, a trans person, someone who's marginalized, something else like that. People are getting tired of it. People feel like they're being lectured, not like they're going to see a movie or a TV show or something. One great example, I want to put it this way. There have been a lot of movies that come out recently that are pushing a progressive agenda. But then Top Gun came out.
Yep.
There is no politics in Top Gun. It is a movie about the military that is entirely apolitical. It does not tell you who the enemy is. There's a couple of female fighter pilots. There's a couple of black fighter pilots. Nobody talks about it. Nobody thinks about it. They're just a bunch of badass pilots going to blow stuff up.
I actually pointed that out about the X-Files, why they would never be able to do the X-Files now, because it was a show about two FBI agents that promoted a bipartisan promotion of distrust in the government. Yep. Like it didn't take sides one way or the other. It's just they're in power, therefore they are corrupt because it's the government.
Yeah, exactly. But what I wanted to finish the thought with was have you guys seen the movie Devotion?
I didn't. No. That's with Jonathan Majors.
With Jonathan Majors. We went to see that when it came out in the theaters. It was my co-host Aidan, one of my best friends. He NYU film, similar political opinions to me, not quite as extreme, but similar. But we walked out of that theater. It is a story about fighter pilots, but most importantly, it's a story about racism.
Yeah.
And the thing is, at no point did I feel lectured.
Yeah.
I did not feel like I was being told I'm a bad person. It was just, hey, here's this story of something that really happened.
Yeah.
And it was a true story of both racism, overcoming racism, and friendship and sacrifice.
The problem is
it was fantastic.
There aren't enough good writers to make all those stories come out that way. Unfortunately, you're only going to get a couple of ones that are going to be able to tell those stories with a deft hand that aren't going to overdo it and turn it into something like dinner theater. There is absolutely, and I think you're hitting the nail on the head. The problem is not that these stories are being told. It's that the writers suck. Yeah.
Well, but at least when it comes to addressing something like racism, that affects way more people than trans issues, just objectively. Therefore, it resonates with a wider audience. But when you're prioritizing telling stories about, being trans or being non-binary or even being gay, which is more common, you're still only addressing a very small sliver of the population, and then their allies.
There's good ways to do it, and they're not doing it the good ways.
When it doesn't resonate with that wider audience, they'll complain that it's because we're discriminating against them. And I'm just tired of being the villain in their narrative of their self-mythologizing of their lives.
They're vindictive, but they also don't realize that they're in their own bubble.
They think that they live in a movie that is their life, and they are the main character.
And they feel that that what they represent is actually what Middle America represents, which is clearly not the same. Though I do believe that that's going to the gap between Middle America beliefs and Hollywood and this stuff will shrink as social media grows and they're able to influence more and more kids. I worry about that. I go back and forth with people about whether they believe the next generation will truly be more conservative. I said, I don't think so. Not as long as TikTok is around and social media is still around. All this stuff will.
I can't think of a time in history that a generation was more conservative than the last two.
Yeah,
we have. I can't think of a single time that we've gotten more conservative over time. Usually progress goes a certain way. I don't think that progressive is necessarily a good. I don't think it has to have a good connotation. You know, I think that there's good progress and there's bad progress. If you are walking through a swamp and you find a pile of quicksand and you walk into it, that's progress. Yeah. But it didn't go very well. So like stuff like that, you know, I think that we really are seeing a lot of stories that are fumbling it. They're not sure how to do it. And oddly enough, one of the best IPs for showing diversity, in my opinion, in a positive light is Star Wars. And I'm not talking about the sequel movies; those were garbage. And it's not because of the diversity stuff; it's because they were garbage. But if you watch Clone Wars, if you watch Mandalorian, if you watch Rebels, any of these shows, and most of the movies, you know, they've got strong female characters. They've got diversity. I mean, think about Empire Strikes Back. That came out, what, 1980? 79, 80, something like that. They got huge backlash for having a black character, a black, important supporting character, and he did a great job. He was a great character. He was exciting. He was fun. He was cool, and it was well done. And you look back on it now, and you watch Empire Strikes Back, and you're not sitting there going, "Oh, God, they're shoving the diversity in my face." Well, there's a good way to do it.
I feel like people don't give Hollywood enough credit for just how diverse it always was. The difference was the story I always give is like, look, back in the day, what you'd have is it would be two main white characters, and then they would make the characters that were of other ethnic backgrounds or minorities the secondary characters. Right now they're flipping it, and it's they're just, a lot of people would see that as a form of like, look, we're just going the other way with it. Right now the same amount of white characters exist, they're just not the focal point anymore. And most of the time I actually don't have a problem with it, like I said, if they don't focus on that being an issue.
I tried to watch acid being spewed at you. Like, not everything has to be about you, white mayo monkey. And it's just like, and like I said, if you're trying to create any goodwill with your audience and you want white people to go support your project in part, like, that's just not how you go about it. Basic human interaction would teach you that. They're just very socially maladjusted people.
Like, this is just one of those things where it's going to, I don't know if this ever goes away. Like, if people are going to be scared into complying and not having opinions on things because of how fierce and fast the backlash comes. Maybe if you're a
coward, it's pretty easy to push back.
Just to really quickly address some stuff somebody said about me saying there was backlash to Empire Strikes Back. It wasn't critical backlash. It was, you're in a small town at the movie theater and everyone's, why the hell is there a black guy on screen? That's what I mean when I say there was backlash. It was pretty well accepted by Hollywood.
Cloudroth said, have you seen any of the insane lefty streamers on Twitch? My coworker just showed me beeps. Some LGBT creator was saying to tell people's kids Santa Claus doesn't exist and God is fake. We're surrounded by creeps.
That's just mean. Like,
why would you want to do that to kids?
That's the world we live in now. That's the world we live in now. Mary, let's go to Super Chats.
Oddly enough, that goes both ways, because there's a lot of like hardcore Christians who are like, don't tell your kids about Santa Claus.
True.
Is that true? Is that true?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially within Protestantism.
It's sort of like a...
I love that people just don't like fun anymore. You're not allowed to have fun. And I do believe that the internet
think that it's like
fun.
A consumerist deity.
Let them be consumerist then for a couple of years.
Okay, Martin Santiago said, Mary is more elusive than both. # no Mary, things get hairy. # free Mary. # prayers.
She feels better, guys.
Your
She's
prayers
back
worked.
To work.
I'm here. Vanguard N7 said, I have an announcement. You have lost the game?
You have lost the game. That's rude.
Lost the game.
Come on, man.
Oh, I see what you mean. Corey Anderson said, Mary, how does your garden grow?
How does your garden grow? Is that a thing?
Good question. Wasn't that nursery rhyme about like a woman having an adulterous husband or something?
You'd have to know that one better than me. I have no idea. Shane H. Wilder.
Shane H. Wilder said, glad to see you back, Mary. Now drench the castle in holy water because weird things have gone on in your absence. Let's go with some lore.
Look, what
things happened?
Well, I mean, I think they're mostly talking about the money guns. I had to get out, I had to come in early, and we had to work on the money guns to make sure that they were going to work today. Which, if you look at the PTZ camera shot, they are absolutely working today, which is fantastic. That's good.
I'm only the people who are in the chat. Like nobody was concerned about Billy D. I'm like, okay, are you telling me that the people who told me about this like were lying to me? Like I wasn't born. I'm just going off of what people who were alive at the time told me. Like maybe they lied, but don't bitch at me for it. Like,
Goofer Trooper said Lore Lodge on PCC. Let's go.
Yep. Also, somebody in the Discord the other day said. What did he say? Like somebody at his work said, why haven't you put on the Let's Go Guys podcast? Because apparently I say Let's Go a lot, which I don't feel like I actually say all that often. They called it like the guy who says Let's Go a lot. I'm like,
you don't say it that much.
But I do say it, but I don't say it that often.
Boosted Yogi said, glad to see your face again, Mary. Glad you're feeling better. Thanks. That sounded so fake. Genuinely, thank you. Corey Anderson said, Revelation 6:8 is my favorite Bible passage. What are y'all's? Well, Brett is not Christian.
Yes, I wouldn't have an answer to that.
I think there's one from Hebrews that I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was like Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow, and don't get carried away with strange teachings.
What was the question again exactly?
Favorite Bible passage.
Oh.
Any
thoughts?
Any thoughts on that?
Isaiah Wendigoon turned me on. He pointed out when we were on Weird Bible once the very end of Stephen's execution in Acts, his trial. I can't recall the words off the top of my head, but basically he looks at the Pharisees and goes, was it not your ancestors who killed the prophets? Was it not your ancestors who, spit on God's word and broke God's laws? It basically just tells them to their face that they're false preachers, and then they just kill him. But it's just badass that this guy goes to his death being like, I believe, I walked with Christ. I was there. You guys are the ones who were dicks to him. So for me, I love that one.
There you go.
I just saw this clip of Trump from an old interview where they ask him, what's your favorite
it's a very personal
Bible verse or
very
something?
Personal question.
And he said, that's a very personal question. I don't like to talk about the Bible on a public interview or something.
The idea here is that he doesn't have any clue.
The answer is Jonah 4:9.
They said, are you an Old Testament guy or a New Testament guy? Which is, I guess, a fair question. I don't know. And he said, I think probably equal. And I just said,
actually a pretty theologically sound answer.
Yeah, I don't blame him at all for not answering, because it's like, even if you do answer, then
they're both
it's a
the
wrong answer, and
yeah.
they'll criticize you for your answer or for your interpretation or for some small fumbling of the words. It's a trick question all along. Yep. Corey Anderson, Quiet Inari said, y'all ever listen to Gary Wayne?
I don't know who that is.
I have not heard of Gary Wayne.
That does not sound familiar to me either.
Okay. Old Warrior 34 said, early Supernatural is Kino. Once they got super into dealing with heaven, it kind of loses the plot.
Yeah, it kind of collapses after season 5. It was not supposed to go past season 5. It was written to end. And then the CW was like, hey, you're our most successful show.
You're making us a lot of money.
Can you maybe keep going?
Stranger Things now.
You literally said that. I'm glad that the Stranger Things actors and writers are like, it's time for it to end.
What did she turn down? $12 million, Millie Bobby Brown, to keep going.
That's a level of privilege most will never understand.
Damn.
Let's move on, Mary. Let's talk about how reality TV shows are destroying the fabric of society.
Yeah. So we've talked about MILF Manor on the show before and how disturbing that show is. I think that TLC is just trying to up the ante now. They've just announced a new reality show called Seeking Brother Husband on TLC. And I guess this is just a show about women who want to have multiple husbands, and I guess it's sort of the gender bent version of Sister Wives.
There you go.
But it's not going to be as successful, probably.
Well, the gender bent sequels never are, Mary.
No. So this comes out this weekend, actually, but we do have the trailer to show you guys.
Okay.
Hopefully we won't get copyright claimed for this.
Let's watch it. I've got the Twitter version of it here.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
It's quite disturbing. So if you have children in the room, avert their eyes.
Yes. Here we go.
Polyandry is one woman having multiple husbands.
Polyandry.
Partner number one. Partner number two is hopefully on the way.
He does not look happy.
The number of brother husbands one can have.
The tables have turned.
So you want a boyfriend and a husband?
Why not?
Not rocket science. We all love attention and love.
Where do we go from here?
Seeking brother husband.
Look,
This looks like it's going to become Fight Club so fast. Like, all the
wait,
men
man,
look
none
horrified.
None of those men are fighting any other dudes. That is for sure.
You can always see in their eyes how crushed their spirit is.
Oh my gosh.
If I was with somebody and they came to me and said they wanted to open up the relationship, I would end it. Like,
I mean, that's what it means anyway.
Yeah, I you know, at that point, like, I'm not necessarily going to judge other people for doing it, but that's just so not something I could do. I would feel so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, I think that the polyamory thing and polygamy and plural marriage or whatever you want to call it, I had never heard the word polyandry before.
Yeah, me neither. Sounds like a name.
I had, but it was because of Mormons.
That's the next step, right? That's the next
This is the
fake civil rights movement.
It is a little funny that people have been making fun of, especially on the left, have been making fun of Mormons for so long about the whole polyamory thing, the whole polyandry thing, and now it's like becoming a left-wing
They're like,
thing.
crap, now we have to embrace it.
Yeah.
But, like, well, here's the thing, though. They don't care, though. They don't care that if they have, like, a bunch of tweets that say the complete opposite of what they now believe.
Oh, I know.
They don't care. It's no truth but power.
And they're celebrating the fake milestones. This one woman on the show named Kenya Stevens said this is the first show on national television that highlights poly women exclusively.
Yeah.
She
So
said-
stunning.
Stunning
so
and brave. She said, women are not similar to men who set up poly lifestyles. We have our own way of doing it, and it's freedom-based and equitable.
Oh, well, I was with her until the equity part. I was like, freedom. I'm here for freedom. Tell me more. Oh, wait, you're just a weirdo.
So tell me how your deviancy is actually empowering. That's what it's all about.
That explanation for the existence of the show does sound a little contrived, I'm not going to lie. Like,
yeah,
They
like,
just say equity and they don't
admit
care if it doesn't matter.
just admit the men's show made you money and now you're going to do it with women because it'll make you money.
Firstly, like, yeah, admit that you're doing this for money, TLC. And then the women who are shown on this show admit that you're doing it because you have, like, severe psychological and emotional problems and are starved for attention.
I mean,
You
they're
not
never
only
going to-
not only want multiple husbands, but also want to be a reality television star.
I would never want that.
Like,
I would never want to be on reality.
it's
Both of
just
those things sound
willingly
terrible.
going into a situation where you know you'll be publicly humiliated.
In reality TV is one of those. I have a soft, even though I don't watch it, I have a soft spot for reality TV because it just seems like.
Oh, I do too.
We talk.
Yeah, every once in a while
we
you throw
talk
on some
about-
Jersey Shore.
we talk about how defense lawyers are the last bastion of people that are allowed to just be awful to everyone, and they're just like, it's their job, it's fine. Reality TV show people get to just be awful human beings. And
Harvey
it's kind of-
Weinstein's lawyer is just like, she was asking for
yeah,
it.
basically, that's what it is. Like they're gonna have a show called Hanging with Harvey, and that's gonna be how
Oh,
he ends up
no.
getting- how they end up getting out of this.
Can it just be a live stream of him, like,
Yikes.
Look, I would never want to be able to be on a show like this. One, because it's like, look, it is the
Because you don't want to be cucked.
No, I mean any show like this, any type of reality TV show, because look, it's the slow chipping away of the culture, right? And as somebody who is fairly like, yo, you do you, I don't really care, but I also then have to talk about it at work, so I'm not allowed to just ignore it. I still then have to at least talk about it and think about what it means for society. And I think that this is going to cause some rise in polyandry? No, but I think it's going to kill a lot of brain cells, in which case I say,
Look.
that's fine. You want to kill the brain cells, that's fine. But I do worry that it coarsens the culture, even if it's not really in my place to tell them they can't do it.
Undeniably, it
Yeah.
does. And also,
that divorce court is going to be so complicated.
How do they think? Well, no, because only one of them would be legal marriage and the other one would be a religious ceremony.
Until they can be
Until
legal
it's
marriages.
legally married.
until it turns into a
And then-
fake
what
civil
if-
rights era movement.
What if what ends up
where
happening
they're
then is,
fighting
like-
for their right to
like-
get plural marriage?
Yes, women always come out ahead in divorce court here in America, but you just wait till we find out that men always come out in plural divorce court, and they end up getting all the money from these ladies and having to split it two ways.
Yeah.
I'd watch. In fact, that's a show I would watch. I would watch a show if it was just the divorces of poly couples, to watch the hilarity that would ensue watching them try to split assets 3 ways. It's like you've got like a thing of golf clubs and they have to like give them to all 3 of the separate people.
You mean the Nintendo Switches, right?
Yes, well, that too.
I can't help but notice that the polyamorous people are never hot. They're always
funny how that works, right?
Kind of pudgy and dysgenic looking. Like, I mean, we're all thinking it. I just said it.
Also, we also had the lady talking about how MILF Manor came to be, given that they said it was very hard to find both single women with single children.
Casting, she said casting for MILF Manor was very difficult because you have to find,
that was the hard part.
You have to find single mothers with an adult son who is in his 20s who is also single, but you also have to deceive them and keep them on the show after they've already signed on to it, after lying to them about what the show was.
Wait, they lied to them about what the show was?
Exactly. So when you set up a show as obviously degenerate on its face as MILF Manor, you have to lie to people about it for them to agree to do this. You get them onto the property, you get them filming. They're already signed on, they're contractually obligated to continue doing this, or else they pay a fine, probably.
And we know that they treat these people horrible.
Oh, yeah, sure.
The working conditions are designed to make them
Love
act
is
out.
Blind.
Yeah.
There's a contestant from Love is Blind who came out and said, like, they literally don't give us food or water and they only give us alcohol.
Jeez.
But anyway, yeah, like, they literally show up at this property where they film the show and find out what the show is. They were totally misled about it. So the managing director of the production company for MILF Manor is named Daniela Newman, and she did an interview talking about what it was like.
I thought women were all virtuous and amazing and would never come up with such a debaucherous concept.
No, it's about empowerment of women. That's why she came up with it.
But yeah, I mean, if you read what they're saying, the women on it didn't actually know.
Yes.
Like,
they lied to them.
Mortensen claims she had no idea about the show's striking title until her final interview, where she was asked to read the line "Up next on MILF Manor."
Yep. So,
which, granted, it seems like she was not yet in Mexico for this.
She said she signed up for the show without knowing exactly what it was about, other than it being told it was about empowering older women. I mean, that's the exact opposite of what it's about, because it's clearly humiliating older women.
I could have pitched you this podcast to, like, Mary, come on this podcast with me. It empowers women.
Yeah, like,
because technically you're allowed to have your opinions here. Therefore, it's empowering women. It could mean anything.
I mean, it really would have been one thing if MILF Manor were just a show about older women dating younger men. But the fact that they brought the sons into it and brought them all as contestants as well is literally incest, and it's promoting incest.
Well, also, like, imagine if you had, like, DILF Domicile. This would be, like, banned from TV immediately. Yes. Like, it would not...
DILF Domicile is the greatest name ever!
Well,
I'm also realizing that Den was a lot. It was a lot, like, I don't know what Domicile was the first thing to come to mind.
Domicile sounds more like you're... like
DILF dorms.
DILF dorms. Wait, okay, no. A show about, like, middle-aged, like, good-looking men going back to college...
Oh, that'd be fun.
...would actually be pretty funny.
And they have to do, like, all of the new gender studies courses.
They have to go back. They have to go and they have to start as freshmen, just like the 18-year-olds.
That's amazing.
I'm getting word that Andrew Tate was just released.
Yeah, I saw that. I didn't want to derail the show to talk about
Cobra.
Interesting.
Let's go. Oh, so hey, there was just a story the other day about how the U.S. Embassy took an interest in the case. Maybe this is what happened. They're like... They sent
Biden is just trying to get those dubs.
Big dick swinging, sending in the U.S. State Department in there to get out Andrew Tate.
Meanwhile, Assange is just like, I'm here.
The best conclusion to this is that we get Andrew Tate like shaking hands with Joe Biden on the front lawn of the White House, and then like Assange is literally watching. Jail.
Wait, was it actually the State Department that got Tate released? Thank God.
There was a story the other day about how the U.S. Embassy in Romania had taken an interest in the case, I guess 2 months later, and now I'm just picturing some like we'll get the made-for-TV movie someday about the brave soul who went and freed Tate.
Oh no, someone said DILF Dungeon.
Yeah. Oh God.
On the subject of Andrew Tate, DILF Dungeon.
I do think I would not be shocked if the embassy did step in and said, he is still on house arrest, that's a good point, but I wouldn't be shocked if they stepped in and said, hey, you need to release him from prison, because if you don't actually come up with something on this guy soon, he's going to be a martyr.
Well, they went way past the 30 days they had to hold him, which they had to get a special provision for just to hold him to 30 days.
Yeah.
And they just didn't release him.
I don't think that Romanians are very attached to or precious about their civil liberties or lack thereof.
Not as much as we are.
We're very attached to those. But anyway, let's get back on MILF Manor.
Oh, God.
So this same contestant, Mortensen, she said she was informed that her 20-year-old son, Joey, was invited to filming to be her support system on the show. Literally just deceived these women.
Lied.
And you know what? The fact that a lot of them stayed, we don't know who left. But
it is
the fact
weird
that a lot
that so
of
many
them
of them
stayed
stayed
after finding out what this show was really about just shows how sick our culture really is.
I mean,
you know?
there was probably they've already gotten a taste of the fact that they're going to be on billboards, they're going to be on TV,
and the money.
A lot of people will do a lot of things for fame.
Should the guys know? Yeah, well, I mean, it's going to turn them. They'll become celebrities overnight. It'll start a career. At the very least, they're going to be able to make a career on social media. If this was younger women, they'd be able to start Twitch careers right away and start streaming and make money off of it.
Ugh.
Like, it's literally it's using the perverse nature of the establishment to build your career off of your own child.
This same woman said to other female contestants, "Sorry, ladies, I might be sleeping with your son." And her son tells her to chill out.
How do they know?
By the way, this is the same person who says she was lied to.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, it's like,
clear.
do I really feel bad for you if you stayed after that? Like, you're basically willing to sell your soul.
It's so weird, and I just
like, what kind of disgusting, deviant women do you need to find who would be willing to stay after they find out what this is about? And
it really is the son's thing, I think.
The son's being there, it's just, you're literally selling them off to other older single moms. It was, I think, 42 to 60 is the age range.
It would be one thing if it was a show about like parents picking dates for their kids of the correct age.
Yeah.
Like, that would be one thing if you got like, if the moms were picking out girls for their sons to date, that might be an interesting show, you know, like, but this is weird.
Everyone would see, I think, if this were DILF Den or whatever, that no dad who truly cares about his daughter would pawn her off to some other man his own age or older. That's insane.
Also, like, I'm 25. The idea of dating somebody who's 18 or 19 to me is really weird. Like, I can't imagine being, 40 and dating like a 22-year-old.
I'm not even saying it's creepy in like a predatory way. It's just, it's creepy in a way that like an older person's sexuality just was never meant to be literally thrust upon the public like this. It's genuinely a disgusting thing that should be private.
It's because of plastic surgery and the way that we've tried to extend youth in this country.
Yeah, like I saw this woman, I think it's a model or an actress or something. She's 64 and she celebrated her 64th birthday. She took this photo of herself in a bikini. Now, look, she looks great. I'm not saying she doesn't. She looks great for her age and just in general. But her caption is, 60 is the new 40.
Okay.
Like, I just don't think that's a very dignified response to aging or approaching your deathbed. It's not, like, it's not what you think it is.
Donna DeRico or whatever from Baywatch is still smoking hot, and she's like in her mid-50s now.
I mean, no one is saying that you can't be
J-Lo.
Attractive at an older age.
Yeah.
It's just like,
Marianne Williamson's kind of.
Do you need to cope that much about it?
It is what it is. But I can't approve that here, guys. Don't worry. That's not a slight on Lauren Boebert. Leave it with Lauren Boebert all the way for me. It's though I think she might actually
by
be
older, I'm not saying like women in their 30s or 40s even. These women are in their 50s and 60s.
Yeah, that's the weird.
You're literally an age that you should have been a grandmother and a great-grandmother by now if we lived in a sane society, and instead you're selling yourself and humiliating yourself trying to still hold on to that sexual appeal and power that you had when you were younger. And I think this is also like something we're not really willing to recognize these days, but young women do have power because they're young and beautiful, and that is why when they engage in relationships with older men, it's far more equitable than a lot of people are willing to recognize because he has power in other ways and she has power in her own ways.
And it's why
it's a transactional relationship, which I don't endorse, but it's a fact.
And people are still having to come to terms with the fact that as they age, like the men age into their resources and the women age out of their beauty in a lot of ways when it comes to that world.
That's when you're at a stage in your life when you should be valuable to like a village, a community, a family, a huge extended family, and they just don't have that anymore. These are single mothers with 1, maybe 2 children who are adults already. Yeah. And they clearly are just like floundering to have a place in society that matters, and they don't have it.
Which one is creepier, MILF Manor or Brother Husbands?
MILF Manor.
Yeah, it's MILF Manor.
Definitely. I mean, both are creepy, obviously, but when you start like pushing incest and almost like, it's not pedophilia, but if you have literally like nursed this child, this person came out of your own womb and you have known, like, your child is your child forever. How can you even look at them that way? It's very, very odd.
Because it's the Western world and we're slowly collapsing under our own stupidity. That's why.
Yeah.
All right, we got some super chats there, Mary.
This one's funny. Chris Chan said, hey, did you hear about me being released from prison? Is this Andrew Tate on his alt account?
That could be his alt account.
His burner.
No Tax Good Tax.
I like the name.
Said,
Good.
My wife and I have been watching X-Files. We were going to watch just the anthology, but the monsters are so much fun.
Yep. Look, it's one of those shows. Everything comes together with the X-Files, and I didn't find it. I was too young when the X-Files came out to appreciate it. I mean, it came out in 1993. I was born in 1986, so I wasn't even that old when it came out. But I discovered it years later. And there's just something about the atmosphere that's built up through Mark Snow's music in that show. And also the other thing that I was trying to explain to people is like, because of the internet, there is no great mystery to explore to the average person, right? They're going to these small towns where every one of these little towns has its own deep, dark secret that they then have to explore. Because of the internet, because of all of the ways that we've illuminated society, that doesn't hit the same way that it does. Like, it won't work if you try to bring it back. But go ahead and keep watching it all the way up through season 6 or 7. After that, watch with your, like, once you get into season 8 and Mulder's no longer a regular, watch at your own risk.
Goofer Trooper said, convinced my BF to watch Sawyer get back to class.
Okay.
Martin.
Oh, also, did you know, here's a fun fact. I mentioned this in the episode the other day, that there was a show based on 3 side characters in the X-Files called The Lone Gunman. Okay, so the Lone Gunmen are 3 conspiracy theorists that are friends with Mulder, and they got their own spin-off show. And the pilot episode, 5 months before it happened, they had the pilot episode featured like a commercial jetliner getting hijacked and flown into the World Trade Center. 6 months before it actually happened. On a show about conspiracy theorists.
Yikes.
I think that, okay, there are a lot of people who think that 9/11 was predicted in Johnny Bravo.
Really?
Have you seen that?
No.
And a lot of cartoons, actually.
I do think a lot of people forget, though, that there was an attack on the World Trade Center buildings earlier in the 90s.
Yep.
And a lot of people are like, oh my God, like, no, it was a target. Like, we knew people were targeting the World Trade Center. So, you know, I also, like, jet fuel doesn't necessarily melt steel beams, but it does reduce their integrity.
Just saying. Just saying.
It does reduce their integrity. It's Building 7 is the one that has me lost. Like the Twin Towers, the planes crashed into them. They weren't really airliner proof, but Building 7, why that one?
Just saying.
That's weird.
Martin Santiago said, I need to know the day in which Brett intends on using those pickup lines on women in the wild. When? Not HCB. Yeah, I don't know if Brett has an answer to that, but
I'm not going to a movie theater and asking random women, I thought you can't bring snacks inside. Or whatever it was.
No, you're not saying it right.
I'm just saying it off the top of my head. What was it again?
I thought snacks weren't allowed in the theater.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Well,
want to come see Oppenheimer with me?
Yeah.
I have to. I've had to do this for like almost 2 years now, but I have to. It was a donation goal that we hit for our show. I have to get a "Make When Dussy Great Again" hat, and I have to wear it into a Hot Topic so the goth girls will degrade me.
That's amazing.
The sad part is goth girls aren't in Hot Topic.
I know. Where the hell am I going to go these days? Like,
You're going to see they-thems in Hot Topic now.
You'd have to go on Twitch streams to find.
I'm just gonna put a call out on Facebook, like advertise it within 50 miles of Philadelphia. Just be like,
go on Craigslist and be like, goth girls needed.
Exactly.
And then you have to wonder why the hell any goth girl is on Craigslist. That's the real
that's the real sussy part.
Like you'd be better off putting it on Tinder.
I had one of my responsibilities when I worked for a property management company was putting up listings of our apartments on Craigslist. I never want to go on that website ever again.
Yeah, I like went to the like apparel, like clothing and apparel and accessories section and just immediately saw a crossdresser. It's just immediately like, I know you didn't need to model that. Clef the Misfit said, why are you so concerned looking up the Epstein flight log on company Wi-Fi? Y'all remember Luke used to work at the Castle,
that's a good
right?
point.
That's a fair point.
True.
I am so sad that I didn't get to meet Luke at any point.
Yeah.
I love Luke.
Disco Jensen said, get your kicks watching Support Court and endeavor to be better than the baby mamas and baby daddies on it.
Okay.
I've never seen Support Court.
I spoke to somebody recently who was on one of those shows.
Oh.
The way they do those shows is really interesting because they are real cases, but the people on the show are not the real plaintiff and defendant. They're actors.
Okay.
So they take real court cases, dramatize them, script them, and put them on TV.
That's really smart.
Yeah, which I think is, although the other thing is, like, I would so love to see a real one of those where you just take two completely nuts people and just throw them up there on TV and see what happens.
Yeah.
Let justice be done.
I said that, like, Springer and Maury aren't really what they used to be because no one cares who the father is now. It doesn't matter. I mean, they'll just pick a random guy.
Oh, no.
Anyway, Christian said, hey, Aidan, are you and Wendy are going to search for those floating orbs of light again?
I would love to go down and look for the orbs. I think he's referring to a video that Wendigoon made last fall. Brown Mountain Lights, I want to say. Green Mountain Lights, something like that. Basically, there's been sightings of these weird orbs in like Appalachia. But
Okay.
I would love to personally.
Do one more and then we'll move on.
Steve Ryman said, everything in moderation, including moderation, Oscar Wilde. Sometimes you have to have that moment or period of excess to keep the doldrums away.
Okay.
That's true.
All right, Mary. Let's move on and talk about Florence Pugh, shall we?
Yeah. So I saw this story where Florence Pugh talked about her experience in Midsommar playing the character Dani. And she basically said that she abused herself in order to complete this performance. And I see that something more being praised than actually criticized.
Because they see it as sacrificing for the art.
Yeah, it's like what level of dedication do you have to your craft? And it really turns into like who can degrade themselves the most as like a
and the director's like
show of loyalty to Hollywood and to directors who have inflated egos.
I will say I watched the movie and I have never had a movie leave me that speechless before. Not for necessarily it was a technically good movie. It was just so deeply unsettling that I didn't come away from it feeling like I gained something. But I think she's more talking about the mental illness aspect than anything else, because her character is supposed to play somebody who has just, witnessed her entire family die, and her boyfriend or husband, I forget if they're married or not, is treating her terribly, and they go on this retreat, and then she gets forced into abusing drugs and like all of this crazy stuff. Like I see where she might be coming from with it, but like that movie was definitely one of the weird ones.
I mean, Ari Aster is the director on this. I have seen Hereditary. I've not seen Midsommar. I think I've seen all I needed to see. And if anything convinces me that some movies that come out of Hollywood are cursed, and the people who watch them are thereby cursed by watching them, that would be it. I'm being so serious. Like, I don't mean it as like hyperbole. I mean, like, literally, it would not surprise me if movies like that, especially directed by Ari Aster, did have like curses put upon them.
Yeah.
Maybe you believe in the validity of those or not, but the intent is clear, I think. And I don't think you can walk away from a movie like Midsommar having gained anything, like you said.
At the very most generous for movies like that, you can say that the goal was to unsettle people, which it certainly
I guess that's
succeeded.
the goal of any horror movie, but I think it goes further than that.
Yeah,
I think it's about like almost. It's not just like it's like, you know, you can say seeking brother husband. That definitely is coarsening the culture, but it's like doing more than that. When you're framing it as like this high art. You know, you're dulling the moral sensibilities of the people who are watching it, who, I'm sorry, are like 105 IQ, and they don't know if there's a meaning to what they're watching or not, nor do they care. They're just watching it and becoming increasingly amoral.
People, there was a couple of comments during the segment yesterday when we were talking about Brooke Shields and everything that happened to Brooke Shields when she was 10 years old on Pretty Baby.
And younger. And talking about a lot of things in the 80s and 90s and before were done that were unspeakable in the name of what they would call high art. And excuses were made and passed off and saying, well, it's okay because it's art. And that's a hard thing for a lot of people to push back on in today's culture, because then they just say, oh, you don't understand it. You don't get it. I think the Brooke Shields one... That's the easiest, most intellectually lazy way to dismiss people's criticisms.
The Brooke Shields one is easier to push back on now.
Sure, yeah.
But something like this is obviously different, and I think a lot of people tend to give these people the benefit of the doubt. They say, oh, look, it's a big-name director. He must know what he's doing. He must have... I don't even know if the average person would say they have good intentions, but they would say that their intentions are not bad, that their intentions are just artistic. And that's how they get away with it.
It's just like, I don't see it as an endeavor of like... artistic skill, because A24 is just Marvel, but for people who wear beanies and circular glasses. Yes. Like, it's a soulless corporation.
I live in Williamsburg.
Not that, it's like, it's not that deep, you know? Like, the people watching these movies aren't smart. The average person isn't smart. And even if you are, it just means you're better at rationalizing everything you do.
It did also do a bit of a disservice to, like, you know, the people both people in my field and also, you know, people who are practicing Norse pagans. They do still exist, and there's some of them that actually do it correctly. There's a lot that don't. I hate to tell everybody, but Wicca was invented in the 1950s so that a guy could sleep with you. That is what Wicca is. Look into it. Okay. I'm trying to remember. Andrew Gardner, I want to say, is the guy's name. But, like... It presents, you know, Norse society pre-Christianity as being this really weird, like, sacrificial, incestuous kind of thing, and it's not historically. I think the movie does do a decent job of telling you this is a very specific cult, but I think it could have been a little bit more, you know, they could have applied more pressure to that part of it, because otherwise what you get is like, you know, oh, well, Swedish hillbillies are worse than American ones, apparently. Like,
I'd rather just have the not high art version of it. There's a television show called The Following about serial killer cults that's fantastic. That doesn't present itself as high art. It's literally just 10 p.m. plus network television violence done in a way with giving great performances by James Purefoy and Kevin Bacon, but it's not like it's presented to you like it's supposed to be high art, though it is, ironically enough, one of the best uses. I made a tweet yesterday about one of the most important things about movies and television is when they're able to meld music and cinema together into good montages and stuff like that, or good use of music in television. And The Following is one of the best examples of that. I'm okay with that. Like, that doesn't bother me. Like, and I don't know if it's necessarily helping the culture. I don't think it's making the culture anything better, but I don't think you're going to look for any of this stuff from Hollywood and find stuff that's making the culture better.
But there are definitely repeat offenders.
As far as the people making the material, you're saying like Ari Aster being someone who does that repeatedly?
Also to clear it up, it was Gerald Gardner that started Wicca, just to be clear.
Okay.
Pop that in there.
So Florence Pugh said, I never played someone that was in that much pain before, and I would put myself in really shitty situations that maybe other actors don't need to do. But I would just be imagining the worst things. Each day, the content would be getting more weird and harder to do. I was putting things in my head that were getting worse and more bleak. I think by the end, I probably most definitely abused my own self in order to get that performance. And this is just something that is praised rather than being viewed with a critical eye.
Now, back in the day, if they were telling a true story about something that actually happened to someone and they felt like they were presenting to you a realistic depiction of something awful that happened to someone so that they could better bring that person's story to the forefront, would you have less of a problem with it?
I mean, if it's shown in the same level of detail, it might actually be worse because you're cheapening what someone else has experienced by making it into basically a pornographic film. I mean,
that was definitely honest, I don't know if you saw that scene from Midsommar, but there is. I mean, it's basically it's an R-word. Totally unnecessary.
It's an R-word scene that is totally unnecessarily graphic, prolonged, and I've said it many times in the show. I don't support the use of nudity or graphic sexuality in any show or movie. It never adds to anything in the project other than shock value. That's all it is.
Yeah.
And I'm tired of like being brushed off as not understanding art because I say that. If anything, the people who use sex scenes instead of going to the effort of like veiling those things and progressing the plot, they're the ones who don't understand art.
I've written a few scenes or a few scripts, and at no point have I ever included a sex scene. And at no point have I ever felt like it would add to the story. Mm-hmm. There's just never been a point where I was writing and I was like, this needs nudity. And in
addition to Ari Aster, there are showrunners like Sam Levinson of Euphoria. And we were talking about him recently because he had written this script for a show that is kind of in limbo right now, and like pre-production hell is what they call it. Because it's been rejected so many times, he's added these extremely perverse, extremely disturbing scenes that are just, they're completely unnecessary. And I can't imagine that somebody who's not dangerous would even think these things up. He's writing these scenes where this actress, no exaggeration, has to hold an egg in her vaginal cavity, and if she drops it, then this guy who is her like evil, Hollywood producer will, quote, refuse to R-word her, and then she has to beg for him to R-word her.
The hell?
Yeah, he wrote this scene, and then,
that's not something that like a healthy mind writes.
No, that's not. Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't want to be around that person.
I've written some dark shit.
Or is it something
that
an unhealthy mind writes to deal with the fact that they understand that their mind is not healthy?
Yeah. Well, then there's the fact that if you are struggling with mental illness and you're writing as a way to get your thoughts out so that they don't dwell inside your mind, which is something I can understand, write it down, but maybe don't try to sell it or release it or force other people to see it.
But it's just like he's throwing his weight around with the studio because he's a moneymaker for them, and he can just, broadcast his weird pornographic imaginations onto the public. And I just think that to bill that as like high art is just such a joke. Yeah. And I found this other story related to Game of Thrones from Emilia Clarke, where in kind of a disturbingly lighthearted way, she said that she needed to drink alcohol to get through a scene where she was getting R-worded in the show. And she was just like, all I needed was vodka and some flattering lighting, and I was ready to go. And that just makes it sound like she's joking around, she's laughing, whatever. But it's actually a big deal.
And she did eventually ask for no more nude scenes.
Yeah.
I think by season 5, she had in her contract. And what's his name? Penn Badgley, the guy from You?
Yeah.
He also did the same thing.
About that too.
Which I am liking that actors are starting to push back a little bit against these unnecessary scenes, because you know, on the one hand, if you got two characters who are in love in a show, then you might show some sort of passionate scene, but you don't need to go as far as a lot of these TV shows do, where it's verging on pornography.
Yeah.
You know,
especially if it's violent.
Yeah. You know who did a really good job recently with it? Star Wars, in the show Andor.
Oh, really?
There is a scene where it definitely implies that these two characters, you know, go to bed together. But you don't see anything aside from them, you know, kissing, and then one of the characters takes off their shirt, and after that it cuts to black and goes to the next scene. Like, you know what happened, you get it, it tells you that part of the story, it's necessary. The only reason I have ever heard from actual producers and writers as to why sex scenes are necessary in movies and TV shows has nothing to do with the plot. It is entirely that sex sells.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
so, you know,
a lot of networks, if they're on pay for cable, meaning like Showtime or HBO, they have mandated numbers of them because they know that does big bucks. And as streaming becomes more popular, all of them are essentially like that now because they're behind a paywall. Just like HBO was, just like Cinemax was.
Platforms.
Look, and I'm gonna admit right now, one of my favorite shows is Banshee, and Banshee has tons of unnecessary sex scenes that I usually like fast forward through because it doesn't advance the plot. What it's done in the show, and I understand why it's there, is that there is a certain amount of kind of there's a grimy, gratuitous nature to the production of the show, given the subject matter, the themes of the show. It makes sense. So I'm not in any way saying that makes it okay. I don't, like I said, in a lot of ways, I would rather they didn't put them in there most of the time, but that's for me, it's mainly because of runtime. Like, you're just using up story for something that I believe could easily be worked around. In a show like that, the goal was to make the show feel grimier and more real by showing something like that. And it's very pulp and fits that way. By the way, guys, I probably mentioned it before. You can take that as today's Brett recommends would be Banshee. It is on HBO Max. Also, if I haven't ever said it before, do go watch Mortal Kombat Conquest. It is one of the worst shows you will ever watch, and it is fantastic. And then go on YouTube, and there's this guy who does reviews of them where he reviews both the original and the director's cut, where somehow he has like access to the director's cuts that still have like the time code at the bottom, and he shows you like where the sound is cut in and everything. It's fantastic. So those are your recommends for the week.
You're nerding out.
Yes.
I think, like, with the idea that sex sells, I don't get it, because the majority of the sentiment I've seen about it is like, it makes me uncomfortable whether I'm watching it with friends or family or I'm alone. I see a lot of people saying like, it's really getting too much. It's getting gratuitous, and it's not because they have Puritan values or anything. It's just also, like, just watching a show or a movie these days has become not a communal experience anymore, and this is part of it for sure.
Well, it isn't a communal experience anymore. Everyone watches stuff in their rooms on their phones.
I will say, every time there's like a big show like House of the Dragon or something, me and my friends do try and, like, when Game of Thrones was on when we were in high school, we would get together every time there was a new episode, or we'd like let them stack up so we could binge. We'd order a couple of pizzas from Domino's, we'd sit down with some sodas and like have a whole night of it. So like, I miss that. But I think another aspect of the whole sex sells thing, though, is that, like, yeah, sure, you know, a lot of people feel uncomfortable about it, but the thing is, there is a consistent number of people who, when you make a movie or a TV show and it's got graphic sexuality in it, will come back and watch it. So you're going for a baseline there. You could write a very good script. There are a lot of phenomenal movies that have absolutely none of that in them, but here's the thing. There's also a lot of movies that did really poorly that don't have that in them. So for a lot of studios, they might see a script that they're like, I'm like 50-50 on this. Add a sex scene to it and I'll make it.
Or if it doesn't do well and it doesn't have sex scenes, they'll scapegoat the fact that it doesn't have sex scenes.
It's shitty writing. That's it.
Yeah, I think like nudity and sexuality in a show or a movie, to an extent, is something I will only tolerate from it. It's not something I'll ever search out in it.
Also, I want to point out that a lot of people have been mentioning, it's a very common argument when we talk about reboots and all that stuff. They say that Hollywood has no new ideas. I actually don't agree with that, because they get millions of scripts all the time. There is constantly new stuff being given to them that they just won't run because they can't market it easily and more cheaply. So I actually don't think that that's true. That they do have the ideas, they just don't want to spend the money to market those ideas.
Oh, 100%.
So
that's why they made a D&D movie.
Yeah, well, no,
we can get the D&D fans to watch the movie.
That's the way it is. Like for them, there's all sorts of newsrooms, and the only person that's allowed to do that now is Christopher Nolan. He's allowed to make his own types of movies. There are other directors that are allowed to do that, but on television, it's easier to just say make him naked and let him have sex, and we'll pretend like it's high art.
Also, I found this study when I was researching for today. There are 108 minutes of nudity in Game of Thrones as a whole.
It's so long.
7 penises, 28 vaginas, 60 butts, and 134 breasts. And I thought it would be funny if there were an odd number of breasts.
It would be really funny if there were an odd number of breasts.
For sets of breasts or total breasts? I need to know.
That would
Clarify.
only be what, 60 some.
That's not even that many. Now are we talking?
I'm not good at math.
Is it like 300 individual breasts? Like I need to know. And also I need to know, how do I get the job to be the person who
76?
counted that? Like who is
76 people?
Yeah, they also rated it 7th of all time in the number of nude scenes in any TV series.
The hell has more?
One is okay. It's number 1, Shameless. Number 2, True Blood. Number 3, The Girls Next Door. Number 4, The L Word. 5, Masters of Sex. 6, Girls.
I am surprised that Masters of Sex is 5th, given the name of the show.
Given the name, yeah.
I've never watched True Blood. Is True Blood worth watching?
It's like some vampire show.
No, yeah,
I know people who watched it and liked it. I've never seen it.
I think that's the one with Joe Manganiello.
But now I have a never watch list.
Yeah. Here's the funny thing is like there are shows I have a little bit more leeway in this, right? Like I'll watch the shows that have this stuff in it. I love Power. Power has tons of nudity in it. I love Banshee, has tons of nudity in it. But I just fast forward.
I mean, even for me, The Witcher was too much. It's just over the top.
Yeah.
And I admit that I have like a lower tolerance for it than everybody else, but I think it's just so obviously intentional, and it's never necessary, and it never edifies the show or the viewer.
Yep. And True Detective Season 1 had some, it was not super over the top in True Detective Season 1 and seemed to fit the storyline. So there are examples of it where it's less bad.
Also, I did find the quote where Emilia Clarke said she had to fight with the showrunners about sex scenes and nudity at the end. Because I saw in the same study they showed the number of sex scenes went down every season until the end of the show. Because you just reach a limit, psychologically.
Also the actors, as they get more screen time, they develop more clout backstage.
And they get more power.
So they can start saying no.
And that's telling. Yeah. You're pressuring people with less experience into doing these things.
Well, you're giving them you're saying like, here, sell your soul if you want more power.
So she said she got more savvy to like telling showrunners what she's comfortable with.
There's a $20 one right there.
Is this Ryle Kittenhouse? He said, is Brett take king?
Brett is Brett take king? Okay.
I don't know what this means.
Is that like is that my own version of chess?
Is he saying Brett is breathtaking?
Oh, that's even better.
Is that what that means?
If so, you know what? I'm just
playing. What's that game where you have to like they give you a card and it has like syllables or words on it, you got to figure out what it is. That's what I'm doing with this.
Yeah. Like I'm gonna just assume that that's what he meant. Because it's nice.
Yeah, I mean it's nice, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it makes you feel good. I like that the person right below him is Theoden, King of Brohan. That is beautiful. That is a beautiful username.
All right, let's go to Super Chats, Mary.
Bobcat said, "Can you milk a Wendigo?"
No, I would not recommend that.
No.
Even if that's anatomically possible, it sounds extraordinarily dangerous.
Jack Garcia said, "About to die in a tornado, but I'll watch as long as I can."
Don't die, my friend. Get to safety. Get to safety.
I hope you're kidding. It's kind of funnier if he's not. Old Warrior 34 said, "Woman drops her wallet, just keep it."
That was the from when we were talking about the lady in the parking lot.
She didn't drop her wallet. Like, let's be realistic here.
And all of this stuff is so plausible.
In the video she gives you, though, she doesn't give you any context about what happened aside from "man approached me," though. Like,
yeah.
Later on, she clarifies, but it's like, you could have done that in the original, you know?
Yeah, this is why women need to be accompanied by their husbands.
Speaking of Theodon, king of Brohan, he says in the chat, Brett is the king of Brett takes. I don't know what that means, but it feels like an insult.
Brett takes.
Feels like an insult.
What is a Brett take, guys?
It's like a very bad, poorly worded, horribly done take that nobody likes. Let's go.
That's your assumption.
That's my assumption.
Johnny Beck sent us a thumbs up. Thank you. X said her son won't hate himself, but he'll be very shy.
I don't know, man. If she's raising him to be very, very, very weary of who he is as a man. Like, unless you're telling me that she's going to be able to divorce that mindset from the entirety of her ability to raise that kid, I don't see a way where this kid comes out of it not at least a little bit self-conscious about who he is.
Unknown said we all know she hit his car parking. So true. Been there.
Like she opened the door. She's like, she doesn't even
as a woman.
Also, somebody else pointed out, because of the parking lot she was in the video, they're like, you wear red to a Target, you got it coming.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I have curbside pickup.
Yep.
Chris Chan said, or try to find that missing kid again, the one who might be kidnapped by Bigfoot. Is there a kid kidnapped by Bigfoot?
I think he's talking about Dennis Martin, who went missing in the 1960s. I want to say it was Father's Day weekend, 1969, that he went missing. Great Smoky Mountain National Park. His dad looked away from basically he and his brother were hiding in a bush because they were trying to scare their parents. They were on a big family camping trip, and he was hiding next to his brother, and his dad knew where he was, and he looked away for a second. When he called everyone back in, Dennis's brother came back, but Dennis didn't, and they looked all over the park and couldn't find him. Green Berets were there at one point. Yeah.
Somebody said foot napped.
Not even a body.
Not even a body. Found nothing. All there was a couple of footprints leading into a creek. One had a shoe, one did not have a shoe, and the FBI said that because the shoe print was too small to be Dennis's, it must not have been him.
Thank you.
I mean, I trust the FBI as far as I can throw the J. Edgar Hoover building, so.
One of my favorite things to talk about on here is how I love cop and military shows, even though I know they're all essentially propaganda.
Yeah.
They are like the highest form of propaganda that can be made, that there's just some selfless guy out there fighting for justice for the average man. Like, at an agency as corrupting as any type of American armed law enforcement could be. Not really possible, but, I like to pretend like it is.
Yeah.
X said, why did they add an X to folks? It's neutral.
Because just the same reason why they...
Latinx?
Yeah.
That one makes me so annoyed.
When somebody mentioned that
Latina
they were making...
or Latino is gender.
When they mentioned that they were making that Ryan Coogler, the director of Black Panther, was going to be doing the X-Files, somebody goes to the Malcolm X-Files. Oh my God. That's a pretty funny joke. I'm not gonna lie. Said the Latinx files.
I mean, you have to make X-Files with white people, because who else is willing to endanger their lives?
That is kind of the stereotype, isn't it? Is the only white people do these things.
Right, exactly.
Have you seen the meme where it shows all of the race swap characters and it gets to Tarzan and it goes, "I dare you."
Yeah.
I dare you, Disney.
Like black people way too smart to do the stuff we do.
Well, they were saying that with the Little Mermaid. They're like, the chances of this happening in the ocean is just, it's not realistic.
Disco Jensen said, incels recognize the privilege women have, betting it's a big reason for the flood of trans identifying.
As far as what now?
Basically, incels are becoming transgender because they believe that women have privileges that they do not as men.
Well, maybe we should, like what they're saying is, look, if you want to go break a sporting record, you just, do you see the guy who broke the powerlifting record?
That's one example. But yeah, I mean, you got to realize, like, you're never going to be treated like women are.
Nope.
If you
No, you're gonna be treated even better, because they have to walk on eggshells around you 24/7 for fear of upsetting you and scaring you.
Which on the surface you want, but it actually makes you feel like you're subhuman.
No, a lot of them want it because a lot of them are power. I think a lot of people are power hungry now, and there are legitimate people that have gender dysphoria that are going through something in their lives that have found a calling to who they are. But I think that there's just as many. It's naive to believe that there aren't bad actors who look at something like this and say, "I can have access to a women's bathroom. Sign me up," is what they're going to say. So,
like at the University of Wyoming, I think.
Yeah.
I think there's definitely a number of people who have legitimate gender dysphoria and are, there is something there. They are transgender in the sense that means what it does mean. I do think there are also other people who, if you look at it throughout the last 20, 30 years with the internet, you've got, furries, for example. You've got all sorts of different, I'm not trying to use this in a negative term, in a negative connotation, but you've got all sorts of, quote unquote, deviant lifestyles and cultures that have cropped up because of the internet, because now, something that you would never have said to your circle of friends, you're sitting around having a beer, nobody's ever going to go, yeah, I mean, I feel like I was born in the wrong body, I'm actually a wolf. That's not, you would never do that, but on the internet, on 4chan, where you're behind a series of numbers, nobody will ever know your identity, you can go and say that. And I think that for a lot of people who are seeking belonging, some of these communities, whether it be furries or being
the other
transgender
one?
or something
not furries. What's the other one?
Otherkin.
Yeah.
There's an amazing video, I've referenced this before, from a YouTuber named A Dose of Buckley.
Yeah.
It's about Otherkin.
I love A Dose of Buckley.
I didn't follow him once he started talking about politics. That kind of ruined it for him. But he has a video called "You're Weird and That's Okay."
Mm-hmm.
It's fantastic.
A lot of people are just looking for acceptance.
And that video is 7 or 8 years old now. That video is very old. I'm surprised there's
good point.
Another person who knows A Dose of Buckley.
Yeah.
Besides me. He used to have a 10 worst songs.
Yeah, that was how I found him. We used to watch it on New Year's Eve.
And he would, because he's a DJ, and he would just do a thing where he counts down the 10 worst songs of the year, and it became his highest video. Because all throughout the year, you do what are called musical autopsies, where you take horrible pop songs and tell you why they're so bad, and then he has his worst songs list.
Yeah, I love those.
Yep. Steve Ryman said nobody goes out of their way to try to identify as white. Well, Michael Jackson, that is not true.
What about Sammy Sosa? Didn't Sammy Sosa bleach his skin?
No idea.
I'm pretty sure Sammy Sosa bleached his skin. Also, let's hold off on the last. I just want to talk really quickly about the Massey twins. The story will anger any and all hot women-loving libertarians out there, ladies and gentlemen.
I don't know. These women aren't super hot.
I like that the title has Taxman.
I know. It's my favorite part. Okay. Whether you find them hot or not, let's just say OnlyFans models. Taxman threatens twin OnlyFans sisters with ban after seizing bank account.
Not the incest again.
Government overreach at its finest, ladies and gentlemen. Their names are Jessica and Sarah Massey, and unfortunately, Jessica Massey went to the government and they were like, "You owe taxes." She's like, "How much?" Like, "We can't tell you." And then she paid, and it wasn't enough. And they closed her bank account. And this is what happens when you get a lot of money very quickly, and you don't understand that when you work for yourself, taxes are a scam.
That's what I think when I see all of these idiot bimbos doing OnlyFans. They make a lot of money at first, and they don't know how to do their taxes. Yeah. They're gonna go to jail.
Not gonna lie. I also don't know how to do my taxes. As a content creator, taxes are the bane of my existence.
Yeah. The thoughting will actually be when they all go to jail for tax. Will be when they all go to jail for tax evasion.
Yeah.
The sisterly duo told the outlet that Jessica no longer has her bank account or any money after they spent a lot of cash renovating their home. And they spent it in the past, and unfortunately, the tax man, I like her admit, and she goes, "We were a little lost in it," she says. I was like, I don't think you understand just how serious the government takes taking your money.
Yeah. Even
the Canadian government, which I also like that this article, because this is a Dick Serto article, they throw shade at Justin Trudeau, which is my favorite part of it, where they says, it's not uncommon to see OnlyFans models, OnlyFans drama make headlines. This past year alone, we've seen preschool teachers getting fired, models arrested for murder. That was the Courtney... The one in Miami, right? And it says, no one likes paying their taxes, especially when money is spent on Justin Trudeau's family vacations. But one of the Montreal-based twins is in hot water after not paying the correct amount. And this is what the government does, right? They're like, you owe us money. And you're like, okay, can you tell me how much I owe you? They're like, no. You have to figure it out.
I mean, they seem to have a very easy option in front of them, which is just moving a few hundred miles south.
Getting
No, we don't need those frostbacks in our country.
Keep the that is the
Listen, the Canadians are our poor brothers and sisters and cousins, and they need to be liberated from
basically French
they need to be liberated from the son of Fidel Castro, who is ruling over them at this moment.
This lady could do a couple of scenes with a Mountie and it would be fantastic. The name is right on the name.
Okay, actually, I mean this in the most sincere way. From everything I have seen doing research on missing persons cases, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police are actually worse than the FBI at their jobs.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's incredible.
Incompetence or just being evil?
It's hard to say because both of them crop up, but There was this one case we researched recently, a guy named Bart Schleier who went missing in the Yukon or the Northwest Territory. He was up there. And he was supposed to be camping and hunting moose for 2 weeks. This guy was a guy who his job was to track and tag Siberian tigers. He was not the kind of guy that like gets snuck up on by a moose. He went missing. He was missing for 2 weeks. The police went up there. They searched for about half an hour. Were like, well, he's not here, and went home. 2 of his friends had to fly in to this lake, land on the lake in a float plane. It took them less than an hour
to find him,
to find some of his remains. And so they had to call the Royal Canadian Mounted Police and be like, hey guys, did you search?
And they're just like, we're busy, sorry.
Yeah, and they were like, I don't really know. Like the dude was like an extraordinarily well-known grizzly bear hunter.
So it's not like it's a nobody who they can just ignore. It's actually somebody relevant.
We have very important COVID protocols to.
I wish that it could be that, but this was like a decade ago.
Yeah. We have very important taxes to collect from.
Here's the hard part for poor Jessica Massey. She says, to make matters worse, Jessica says that the Canadian Revenue Agency threatened to take and potentially ban her OnlyFans account. Isn't that like the government to just go and take away your revenue stream and then tell you owe us more money?
I feel like if your career is incest porn, you kind of deserve to go to jail anyway. So
is that what they do?
No, it's just I mean
they're literally selling it as like we're related.
Somebody
I just don't know what their content looks like. Like if they're just like modeling and posing, I guess that's different from like.
I mean, it's on OnlyFans, so
I have some friends who do OnlyFans where there's nothing like that, where it's like they just pose. Like one girl, she dresses in like lingerie and Star Wars helmets, and like that's. I don't even know if she actually posts nude content on OnlyFans, but she has subscribers. Like, which honestly, as far as like that genre goes. Star Wars helmets and lingerie is a pretty damn good one.
Well, cosplay in general makes a lot of money. A lot of those people have transitioned very quickly into very lucrative deals. Probably not paying their taxes because superheroes wouldn't pay taxes, would they?
Well, what gets me is like, I don't know. I've never used OnlyFans, so I don't know what it's like. But I know for YouTube, for Patreon, and from what I understand, OnlyFans started out as a Patreon competitor.
And that's what they wanted to be when they said they were going to make it safe.
I famously got a message from a recruiter saying like, we're looking to take our platform in another direction. We're going to be posting people doing lots of, because I was doing a lot of mental health type content relating to skating, exercise, stuff like that. And I was like, no, because I had a Patreon at that time.
Yeah.
Like, no, I'm not going to.
There's such a stigma with it, but like I get a 1099 form every year.
Yeah.
Like I'm told how much money I made from OnlyFans, and then all you gotta do is you gotta log into, I don't know what they do up there, but like just if you know what the top tax rate in your country is, just if you think you're gonna be in it, just set money aside. Like, I mean, I'm sorry, but this is.
But she had housing renovations to make.
But that's the thing is, on the one hand, taxation is theft and we should abolish the IRS. But on the other hand, if the law exists and you have Google, I don't really feel bad for you for forgetting to pay taxes.
I know.
I do have.
Oh boy.
I do have my my growing list of tax heroes that I'm going to be putting up on the wall. Number 1 being Wesley Snipes. Everyone loves Wesley Snipes. Nicolas Cage.
Good.
I love that they sent like a picture that's like. Chris Tucker.
Okay.
Chris Tucker and Willie Nelson.
Good.
Willie
Interesting
Nelson.
group.
I don't get the whole like having a hall of fame of like tax evaders in Hollywood because
tax evasion is a patriotic activity, Mary.
Exactly.
But like literally all of them evade taxes.
This country was founded on tax evasion,
and they all hate the country.
I am paying respect to the ones who got caught unjustly.
Exactly.
Unjustly.
So, yeah, you only get on the Hall of Fame if you got caught.
Yeah, if you got caught.
I sell a shirt. I sell a shirt on unqualifiedapparel.com that says in the "It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia" font, "Commit tax fraud." It is my most popular shirt on that website. Like everybody loves tax fraud. There's also one that says there are only 1,714 ATF agents. because the implication.
Yeah. Dude, we need to just I'm fine with doing a segment all the time where we talk about and maybe Shakira will end up on there, but I'm not sure she qualifies because she doesn't owe the American government.
That's true.
She owes the Spanish government, and I don't really have a beef with them because I'm not.
But I mean, America rules the world, so. Do you have chorizo with them?
No.
Oh, damn.
No. Yes, I am waiting on. Ellen Thompson mentioned Martha Stewart. I am waiting on a Martha Stewart picture as well. She's up there, so there will be a full list of Hollywood tax heroes.
I really want the Martha Stewart biopic to get made.
I know.
I mean, that'll get made. It'll be amazing.
Her prison stint.
I'm sure.
Where she
amazing.
becomes a cult leader in there.
She's teaching them all how to cook and
how to sew.
It's a way of like lulling them into a trance. It's like
they get to get in touch with their feminine side. We've got a super chat from Garrett. How do I say that? Weingartner. Yep. He said, "Awesome to hear." Just wanted to say sorry, Aidan. Your donation goals are going to get blown out of the water after this. Can't wait to see the blue hair again.
Oh no, not the blue hair! I don't want to bring it back.
Woo!
We have we typically have a $5,000 donation goal for me to dye my hair blue again.
Nice.
Here's the thing.
Okay.
Last time, it was a $1,000 goal at one point, or it might have been a 500. Back when we didn't ever. Back when we were averaging 80 viewers a stream.
Yeah.
So I was shocked we hit it. The reason I have to shoot a sexy calendar is Wendigoon paid for it. So I have to shoot a supernatural themed sexy calendar this summer, which the problem is I need to get sexy first, which is a lot of effort when you work 60 hours a week.
But the point was that it's just you're going into it as just how you
regular
look.
No. I want, if I'm gonna shoot a sexy calendar, it's gonna be the sexiest calendar ever shot.
Fair.
But my point in saying that was that we had a donation goal. People wanted me to dye my hair again. The problem is I had frosted tips for 3 months. So
well, Brett here did the same thing.
Yeah.
We got 20 crisis parties.
Yeah. That was for 30.
It's now a $5,000. Yeah. It's now a $5,000 one. They have to hit 5K if they want that.
You said 20, and then we eventually were closer to 30 anyway.
Yes.
But you bleached your hair and you had frosted tips for a while.
Yeah, mine was blonde though, not blue.
Did everyone also assume you were bisexual?
Probably.
Yeah, that was.
No, the women liked it.
I had an appointment the first day after I dyed my hair and got multiple compliments, and I thought it was a psyop. I thought Mary called my doctor and was like, "Could you have the nurses there tell him his hair looks good?"
I did it myself.
I'm not gonna lie. When it was blue for a hot second, it was kind of cool. It was the 3 months with frosted tips that really started to get to me.
Frosted blue tips.
Actually, I think it might have been even. When did I do it? I dyed it in, I want to say April 2022, 2021, 2022. When was it? I actually don't even remember at this point.
About a year ago now.
Yeah, I feel like it was probably about a year ago. That was the second time I'd had frosted tips because of my YouTube channel. But those ones lasted way longer.
You didn't want to just dye it brown again?
That would have been smart.
Yeah. I guess you're really fully committing. If you
exactly. At a certain point, you got to commit to the bit.
Yeah.
All right.
Bobcat.
Let's start super chats. We weren't in super chats, so that was a $20 one we were talking about.
Yeah.
Let's go to super chats.
Bobcat said, "Have you heard there's going to be a new movie set in the Stalker universe? Yes, I'm trying to make them get Wendigoon on now."
Yeah, Wendigoon is with the permission of the people who made Stalker, or at least with their support. I don't know the exact situation. I don't want to speak on his behalf, but it's okay with them is what matters. He is making a movie that is set in the Stalker universe. I saw some of the shots from. I was actually going to be an extra in it until he ended up finding a cosplay group that helped out. But yeah, I saw some of the shots. It looks really cool. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited for it to come out. So yeah, for those who didn't know, definitely check that out.
We'll review it when it comes out.
There you go.
Grin said, "Be the villain in your own story."
We can all do that.
Podcast long enough to see yourself become the villain. History Daddy said, "Aidan is forever based. I heart the Wendacy."
Thank you, Ryan.
Tacti Platy said, "Big avocado caused the rift between Masons and Catholics."
Big avocado. Yeah, you know what? Sounds about right.
Very possible.
Alex making beds and writing novel on the side said, "Just finished watching D&D movie. Actually liked it."
Is it? I'm not going to ask if it's good, but is it worth like drinking a bottle of whiskey and watching with some pizza?
In that you sneak into the movie theater?
I saw other people in the chat. I think maybe that was the same. Maybe it was also Aidan, Alex, but like I saw other people say they saw it and said it was good. So
yeah, I mean,
men
there's
were not humiliated in the movie. I assume.
There's a place called the Movie Tavern. I don't know if they have them down here, but they have a few of them up where I live, and it's basically a movie theater where you go and you sit and they bring you food and
Alamo
alcohol.
Draft House is the equivalent.
We had it was called those are the best times. The pizza, we had one in Minnesota that brought you pizza.
It just seems distracting.
They usually get it out like before the movie gets going, so you got your food there.
It's like kind of a faux pas to continue ordering food throughout.
A little bit, yeah.
Jay Murray said, Mary, Mary, quite contrary, how does your garden grow? Original nursery rhyme referenced earlier. I'm aware. Thank you, Jay Murray. Quiet Inari said, Gary Wayne talks about the Nephilim and how pagan gods are most likely fallen angels.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's... I mean, that's the opinion I take with it, is that if you read it, it really sounds like God had this group of like chief angels who he appointed to rule over the nations, and then the nations started worshiping those gods instead of the high one, which is El Elyon, the Almighty Adonai, the Christian God, the Christian and Jewish God. So like, it makes sense to me that, given the other stories we get throughout Judaism, the idea that you would have, for example, there's a passage in Daniel where an angel comes to help Daniel, and the angel's like, sorry, it took me so long to get here. I was delayed by the Prince of Persia. He doesn't mean like, I think it's Cyrus at the time. He doesn't mean Cyrus. He means the angel appointed to rule over Persia. And then he says he was able to get there when the chief prince came down and helped him out, the chief prince being the archangel Michael. So it's pretty common in ancient Jewish scripture that there are other divine beings, but that they are beneath God. They are not gods themselves. They do not possess the power of creation. They're basically his assistants.
Mm-hmm. Steve Ryman said, I form the light and create darkness. I make peace and create evil. I, the Lord, that do all these things. Isaiah 45:7, Dewey Rhymes translation.
Yeah, that was from when we were asking about favorite Bible verses.
Corey Anderson said, tomorrow is the U.S. Navy Chief officer's 130th birthday. Shout out to all my chief brothers and sisters.
All right. Corn pop.
It's not corn poop now.
I know, but I was
cool.
abbreviating.
He said, I don't even know how to say this. It's just gibberish.
Okay.
I don't know what to say. Sorry, corn pop. Boosted Yogi said top G for life.
Someone earlier said, somebody said you guys are, this is a fair criticism. They said you guys are cheering the release of Andrew Tate, but you're talking about the degradation of society.
I'm not cheering for
I'm not cheering for the release of Andrew Tate. I'm cheering for the fact that, they didn't have anything on him and they let him go because that's the right thing to do if you don't have anything on somebody. I still think he's a piece of shit.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really care whether he's
no opinion about
locked up or
what he
not.
is because I have no idea if he's a bad person or not. I can only guess, and I just
But if we're judging by physiognomy, not a trustworthy person.
No.
But he should not be locked up without due process and just held for no reason. Otherwise, that too could happen to you. So you have to be careful who you cheer for the downfall.
I'm a cultural relativist in that way. It's like if you don't care about civil liberties in your country, they're like, none of my business.
I very much take the moral objectiveness. Like there's objective morality. Some things are right, some things are wrong.
There is. I just think I don't know. I feel like we're a little bit like precious about it.
But also, like when we're doing this show, like if I'm like saying free edge, like a lot of times I'm just fucking around.
I mean, what pisses me off about it is sometimes it's like we wrongfully imprison people in our country all the time, but act holier than thou about other countries doing the same thing.
Yep.
But I feel like on the one hand, like for me, I'm always advocating for criminal justice reform, for bail reform, for all sorts of reforms here. So yeah, the United States has a problem with the way that we treat the criminal justice system, but that doesn't mean that because as I'm an American, I can't criticize somebody else. I'm criticizing my government and somebody else's government. That's the way I say it, at least.
Jay Murray said, honest politicians do not exist.
Therefore,
Bigfoot is more elusive.
I am going to end the...
I thought this was a community of high intellect.
I am going to end the poll here, ladies and gentlemen. The question was, what is more elusive, an honest politician or Bigfoot? The answer, ladies and gentlemen, with 82% is, of course, an honest politician. Very hard to find one of those.
Those percentages don't add up.
So, because there's 17% at all? Yeah.
That adds up to 99%.
Yeah, that's weird. Touchy Subjects said, "Can I live in Dilf Dungeon? Great guests. Be East on?
Be East on?
I don't know what that
Maybe he
means.
meant to say Beast on?
Also, yes,
Thank you.
I don't think you want to be the one living in the Dilf Dungeon. Like, I think, aren't the girls supposed to be the ones living in the Dilf Dungeon in this one?
I mean, my understanding was that the dungeon
belongs to the Dilfs.
So it's both. They both live there.
Okay, I don't like Dilf. I don't like Dilf Dungeon as much anymore. Now it sounds a little bit wrong.
Yes, he has a separate domicile.
Yeah, the Dilf domicile, the Dilf den, the
Dilf den is a lot more.
Something that doesn't imply people are imprisoned.
Maybe we could put it out at sea and call it the Dilf dinghy. Or living on an oil rig or something.
Okay.
I'm cool with that.
Bobcat said Building 7 was demoed because they didn't have the manpower to put that fire out and rescue the people trapped in the main buildings. That's a theory.
Where's Luke?
It wasn't a controlled demolition though. Like they didn't have time to set up a controlled demolition.
That's a very fast controlled. Demolition. If so, also, where's Luke when you need him?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Ryan Rubino said, "Would the bat signal for goth girls still be a bat?"
I feel like it would, honestly.
Are we talking?
Probably.
Are we talking like rave goth girls? In that case, it's like a birth control cycle.
Oh god.
What?
It's like the birth control cycle thing, like where they get the pill out of the compact looking thing that girls take birth control from.
Does it look like the thing that it comes in a sewing kit that holds pins?
Looks like a pictogram. Looks like the thing where you the circular picture viewer.
I wouldn't know.
Thing.
Bryn said, at Harv, just be the bad guy in his own story, TBH.
Okay.
Huh? I don't know what this
also,
means.
I saw a great meme the other day. It says, if Batman was married and it's the bat signal, it says, buy bread on the way home on the inside of the bat.
Rhaegar Trump 2024 Targaryen said, "Thankfully, all of chat has above 105 IQ. We have the best brains. You never seen a brain like this before.
We have the best brains. You've never seen a brain like this before. I'm telling you, I promise. I know it. You know it. Everybody knows it."
We watch movies and roast them with half our brains tied behind our backs.
I'll take the lower than 105 IQ.
I have the smoothest brain. My brain is so smooth.
That is me.
It's so smooth it will just roll off.
It's nice and shiny. Shane H. Wilder said, "Mary isn't wrong. Hereditary had me going for my rosary, and I actually like horror films. Hereditary was just wrong on so many levels."
It was pretty rough.
I mean, it's also about like the fact that the narrative is that evil wins.
True.
End, you know.
Although that's not the worst narrative to have in movies, in my opinion, because the fact of the matter is sometimes evil does win. Like communist
on
China.
more of a cosmic level. I mean, not like human powers, but in spiritual warfare that evil wins.
I do think that is something that's missing though in a big way from a lot of children's media is like if you watch children's shows today, the good guys always win.
Oh, totally.
Every single time.
There needs to be more danger and stakes in stories for children, for sure.
That's why I think the Clone Wars was such a good TV show for
was
kids.
A good show.
Oh, like you had dark moments.
It was a good show.
And at the end of it, evil wins.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not really a spoiler.
The good guys don't always win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you didn't know that the Empire starts, then I'm sorry, but
Rhaegar Trump 2024 Targaryen said, "Andor isn't gay. What a non-inclusive, bigoted show."
Very, very bigoted.
Kai said, "So glad I found you all instead of Steve Shives. This content kept me alive with a shattered spine for 10 years. Homeless half. Thank you."
I'm not sure what the Steve Shives thing is about, but I'm glad.
Thank you. And thank you for watching.
T-Bone said, "Mary Brett, would you get Pearl on PCC?"
That would be a huge get to get somebody of her stature.
Interesting, for sure.
I could ask her like, so what was up with that Nick Fuentes interview?
Who's Pearl? Oh, Liberty Hangout dragged the hell out of me in 2019 for joking on a friend's private like Facebook post that somebody should punch Nick Fuentes in the face at CPAC, which somebody should punch Nick Fuentes in the face at CPAC.
It never happened.
Don't do it. Don't do it. But like the Justin Maldo's, I think his name, the Liberty Hangout dude, who's married to Kent State gun girl. But yeah, so my buddy posted something about going to CPAC, and I was like, you should punch Nick Fuentes while you're there. He then takes it, screenshots it, doesn't cross out my name or anything, puts me on blast to like 50,000 people. Michelle Malkin's mad at me for some reason, like after I helped her set up an event for Yal like 2 months prior. It was
in 2019. That makes sense.
Yeah. But
I love hearing like the inside baseball of like.
You said you were like canceled last year. Like, what's the deal with that?
Oh yeah, so there's this lady who goes by the name Momlennial with an underscore. The Momlennial without the underscore is just a normal woman. Don't attack her. But the Momlennial with the underscore, she came after me because she posted a bunch of like pseudo historical things. One of them was Alexander the Great was a woman, and I was like, no, he wasn't. Another was ancient, like Neolithic. We're talking 10,000 BC fertility statues, like this yay big. Said they were crossbow sites, but the crossbow was not invented until like 500 BC in China, not Europe. So there were a couple of things, and then somebody like comments and he's like, hey, did you know that Alexander the Great's a woman person says Rome isn't real? And I was like, no, there's no way.
It just didn't happen.
There's absolutely no way somebody is actually taking that stance.
It just didn't happen.
I go and I look, and not only is she saying that Rome didn't exist, she's also disparaging historians and archaeologists who study Rome and providing no real evidence of her own. She's like, we don't have any early Roman documents. So I made a few videos debunking some of her points, but those few videos got a lot of views. And I was like, ooh, maybe I've been stuck at 800K on TikTok for a while. Maybe this is how I bump myself up to that million, is just doing this. It's harmless. Like, it's history. It's educational. I'm doing a good thing, actually. She took this, once she found out about this, that I was doing these videos that were just thoroughly debunking every single point she made, she tried to accuse me of being a white nationalist or a white supremacist, said that I had founded a YAF chapter when I hadn't, and that YAF is white supremacist. I don't think it is, but I was never in it, so I don't know. I was president of Young Americans for Liberty. She also brought up that I was vice president and a founder of the Turning Point USA chapter at Penn State. I was. Then Turning Point itself removed me from the executive board because I tried to set up a meeting with the NAACP to fight racism on campus. So I got removed from my position for not liking racism. Went on to start a Young Americans for Liberty chapter because they gave me all the control I wanted over it, and became vice president of College Republicans and pushed that towards being more libertarian as a group. And she took all of this, removed all of the stuff where I was probably the most liberal person in any of these clubs, and tried to make me seem like I was somehow a white supremacist, and then she tried to make me a sexist, and then it was like, she just kept on, then I was anti-Semitic, and the thing was, every time she'd do it, and this is what I tell everybody who faces cancellation for a BS reason, is do not sit there and deny or ignore, confront it head on, explain why the person is full of it, and then you're gonna have your followers who know you, who know your content, who know what you're doing. They're gonna sit there and gonna be like, all right, not only did you not run away from it, but you also explained it, you gave us reasoning, you didn't tell us, you didn't tell us that it wasn't worth you. Like, if you actually confront the cancellation, it's far less likely to succeed.
Okay.
It's like Shakespeare was a black woman. You might deny it. You might have evidence to the contrary, but is it worth losing your job over it?
Yeah.
1,000 Foot Deep End said, welcome to PCC, Aidan. We'll be checking out the Weird Bible.
Thank you.
Mary, nice to see you back. Brett, hi. Couldn't leave you out.
Thank you. Also, I want to ask, if you wanted to give new viewers one specific episode on Lore Lodge to watch to get them hooked, what would it be?
All right. Our video on The Boy in the Box is probably one of the best we've ever done.
Okay.
That is one of our best videos. It solves a 60-some-year-old crime. I got a call from one of the investigators afterwards basically telling me I was right.
Whoa.
Yeah. And keep in mind, we're not a true crime channel.
Yeah.
This was something that we just happened upon. People were like, hey, do you want to cover this? I spent 3 weeks like buried in books. I was working an extra 20 hours a week on top of my normal research schedule to get that video done. It's probably one of our best. If not that one, our video on the Gabby Petito story is also a really solid one. And then if you want to get introduced to the more supernatural side of stuff that we talk about, we have a video called Missing 411 and Bigfoot, I think, or the Missing 411 Bigfoot theory, Missing 411 Bigfoot. So anyway, look that up. That's going to get you into some of the more like conspiratorial kind of stuff. So if that's the side of things that you're interested in, check that one out. If you're interested more in true crime, Boy in the Box or Gabby Petito.
Excellent.
On the Lord Watch.
Yep. Kai said surgery is done much better, but up to 2 years recovery.
Wow.
And then he said Girl Scout quit bumming chat. Don't know what's going on there.
They're arguing in the chat.
Yeah, they're arguing about the lady.
As they've been known to do.
About the screamy lady.
Literally from the beginning of the show.
They have been arguing about it the whole show.
Yeah, they're still arguing about that.
Okay. You guys have fun with that.
This is why that content does so well and why it's so addictive to make that type of content, because it incites these types of debates, which just bring it out of people.
That's why Keemstar has a job.
And that and Pineapple on Pizza, which apparently also brings it out of people.
Keem was in the chat the other day while we were talking about Creator Clash.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Teamwork said, he sent like a sticker.
Thank you.
Thank you. 1,000 Foot Deep End said, speaking of the RCMP, what is that?
Royal Canadian Mounted Police.
Does anyone remember the 90s TV series Due South? For years, I wasn't sure if it was real or a figment of my imagination.
I never watched it. Is that what that one was? Is that the one with Brendan Fraser? I don't know.
I've never seen Due South.
I don't remember, but I know it was a show.
Garrett Weingartner said... Oh, no, I already read that one. It's over 9,000 said, my favorite Charlie Kelly illiteracy moment was when he tried to say philanthropist, but instead said full-on...
R-wordist?
Yes.
That's kind of like whenever you say PDF files and you say it so elegantly without screwing anything up. Amazing.
I saw like this TikToker who is like a therapist that made their username Therapist Kyle.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Whatever their name was.
Yeah, that was not good.
Or like Kyle Therapist.
Yeah, it was like Kyle the R-wordist, basically.
I don't know what therapist out there is named Kyle. I just made that up on the spot, but yeah, not good.
It really isn't a therapist name.
No, it's not.
I'm Kyle. Talk to me about your problems.
You walk into Kyle's like office and there's just holes in the wall from all the times people have punched it.
What did you say?
Okay, I need to know then what the hell is a therapist name? Cameron?
Sean.
Susan?
I had a therapist named Sean when I was a child.
How about Susan?
I had a therapist named Haneen.
Janet.
But that's like a therapist that you need to kick to the curb.
My when I was in DBT, I had to do DBT training after when I started my recovery, and I had for a couple of years I had Dr. Haneen. Great.
Honestly, I don't remember my therapist's names.
It didn't work.
Yeah. Gordon Shumway said, when I was told
Pace.
In the army, we had 2 guys show up to duty with blue hair. One guy had to shave his head to be in regs. The other one tried to hide it with shoe polish. That didn't go well.
Doesn't sound like that would go well.
No.
With shoe polish.
I was very briefly in the National Guard, like 4 months, and I only ever did RSP. I never actually went to basic, but this is one of my like favorite stories. Was we had to go out and do first of all we had to get a haircut basically before every single time we came in, because my hair grows too fast in a month to get over the length. So we had to do that, but also the Sunday mornings where we'd have to get up and go outside and do PT. My favorite thing about that was the differences in men's requirements and women's requirements for infantry, because I had to do, I think, 23 push-ups in a minute, which is not hard. The girls had to do 7.
7
in a minute?
Mm-hmm.
I had to do more than that when I was in like PE class when I was a kid.
Yeah, they had to do like 7 of those, like 17 sit-ups, and they had to run, I think, a 10-minute mile or something.
What
was the guy's mile?
The minimum was like 8:30.
Okay.
I was just thinking about this because I think
it was not, which is not good, by the way.
In the context of like being a police officer, I always thought it was ridiculous that they don't do physical training throughout their careers. They only do it in the academy.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that they don't have...
that should be a continued thing where you're continually expected to reach the same benchmarks.
Yeah.
Forever.
They do get a little bit lighter as you get older.
The criminal industrial complex love it, because then they just run from some Dudley Do-Right looking dude who's like 500 pounds.
Dudley Do-Right.
That was the show that Brendan Fraser was on, Dudley Do-Right.
Okay.
Sounds right.
Yep.
Kai said, "Glad you're well again, Mary." Thank you.
All right, guys, before we go, could you please hit the like button on this video? Could you subscribe to this channel? Though here we say gently tap.
Gently tap.
Gently tap the like button. We're not rough around here. Gently tap the like button. I'll leave a comment on this video. Share it with your friends. It gets the name for the show out there. Thank you very much for all that. Aidan, my friend, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I've had a great time.
Let everyone know where they can find you.
You can find my content at The Lore Lodge on YouTube, as well as Twitter and Instagram and TikTok, or at The Aidan Mattis on Instagram and TikTok, with my Twitter just being Aidan Mattis. So that's AIDANMATTIS.
Perfect. Mary, where can they find you?
You can send me validation on Instagram at Mary Archived, and send me hate on Twitter. That is also Mary Archived. Thanks for watching, guys.
And there's one more.
Oh, and Potatoes for Seamus said, hello, guests Mary and Brent. So happy to see y'all.
Brent?
I'm not happy with the gaslighting, guys. Remember, Brent is not a name. It's just Brett, but sneezing when you got named. It's not a thing. Brent is not a name either. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Also, Brett is not right unless it has both T's. One T is wrong.
Is this the PCC version of Hannah and Luke arguing about their names?
Basically, yeah. They like to gaslight us here. Brett with 2 T's is the only one that should be anywhere near any of those. Leave the rest of them alone. Guys, if you want to follow me, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Brett Dasovic. That's BRETTDASOVIC. The show is here Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That is noon Pacific. If you would like to listen to this podcast, we are also on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Pandora, and Spotify. And if you'd like to follow the show on social media, it's on Twitter at popculture_show, Facebook and TikTok at popculturecrisis, and on Instagram at popculturecrisispod. We will be back with another episode on Monday. We'll see you then, guys.
Bye.
See you.